The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking fan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And
our host has decided he's just going to skip tonight. I guess I'm assuming you've texted him saying, where the blankety blank are you?
Yeah, he saw all the messages, so he'll be here momentarily. Normally here, Robert Winfree, and I guess he'll be here shortly. But, of course, I am the other host, Mr. Mark, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And over there, in my friend's spot, is Alexis.
Because you can't put me on the bottom yet. You can't. Yeah, it's like I know. There's Alexis on the bottom where she deserves to be, but
that's right.
Can't do it yet. Not till Robert shows up.
No, I can't be on top of you tonight. Yes, from Honeysuckle Rose Creations, Alexis Hejna. How do you do?
Doing good. It's so funny because wasn't this podcast originally my idea way back when I was the one who said we should start doing more Oscar movies? And
it was an amalgamation of things. Don't take credit you don't deserve. You're not the star of this thing, pal. It was a combination of a bunch of different factors. We went over this a year ago when we did this originally. It started off as you saying, hey, we should tackle more of the Oscar stuff. And it was around the same time that Robert and I were like, hey, we should tackle more of the streaming stuff. And there were a handful of movies that I wanted to watch anyway. So, for example, we did Judas and the Black Messiah. That kind of what kicked this ball off. And then Robert and I did I can never remember the name of the movie anymore, but it's the one about the shyster and the nursing homes. And then and then there was a whole conversation that Robert and I had in the group chat about how he was like, there's no middle ground of film anymore. I think he was like, film is dead. And I'm like, it's not. We just don't talk about it. That spawned the triple feature where we talked about that previous year's Best Picture nominees and the winner, which were Nomadland, Mank, and The Father. And so that all kind of blew up into, hey, why don't we just talk about all of them? So it was a little bit of you, it was a little bit of me and Robert, and it was a little bit of, yeah, if you'd like credit for something, I'll give you credit for this. You kind of passive aggressively challenged Robert and I to be able to to see if we could review more serious films, and we don't.
Well, because I would say I think when I came on, Damn You Hollywood was mostly blockbuster. Yeah.
And Robert and I don't cotton to bitches telling us we can't review film. So,
and then you get me and Dorian coming in suddenly saying, hey, why don't we review more horror movies?
No, that was also, we had always done horror. That was your ex-boyfriend who fucking every other Long Road to Ruin was Scream, Paranormal Activities, fucking.
That makes sense. Comer's always liked scary movies.
Hang on. The reason he's not here is because he doesn't pay attention to the shit that I sent him.
I did. He wasn't talking during our text or anything. It was like, usually Robert would have chimed in by now when I mentioned that watching Zone of Interest was like having my teeth pulled. And I was like, and I got nothing out of them.
So. Yeah, so he doesn't see the link in the chat with the two of you, he only responds to the one that's just one-on-one between him and I.
Oh, apparently if I'm involved, all of a sudden it's just, nope, not going to pay attention. I don't want to talk to the chat that has a girl
tracks.
in it.
Anyway,
this is what I get for still being the only woman on this show, on the network.
Consistently, yes. We've had people in and out of here. We've had Shay, we've had my ex-wife's friend Elizabeth do stuff. We get the occasional broad on here, but you're the most consistent broad. And here he is, folks. There he is in the spot where he belongs. You realize I put the link in the chat with you and Alexis, right?
Yeah, but you did it like yesterday. It's not showing up in mine.
Yesterday? He did it an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't see it.
Hi, Robert.
Hi.
All right, so this is our 2024 best. And now we can finally start the show. This is our 2024 Best Picture Contender Survey. We did this last year with all 10 pictures. And if you're just tuning in, we kind of went through yet again the long and storied history of how we went from Man of Steel to Poor Things. So here's it's
a long and winding road, folks.
It was a long and winding road. So here's the deal tonight. I'm going to be a bit more of a podcast Nazi than I normally am. We are going to talk all 10 best pictures. We're starting off with the ones we didn't actually review on here, though one of them I reviewed elsewhere. And then we're going to touch on the ones that we already did. And then we're going to look at Oscar snubs. I have a list from Variety. And then we're going to look at all the categories of Oscar nominations and make predictions, including, but not limited to, Best Picture. All right.
Yeah, Robert,
so
I know you hate Variety, but...
Go ahead.
I'll say, I know you hate Variety. I get it. We hear about it all the time. But when it comes to actual movie news, they are still the #1 publication. There's a reason that the Oscar campaigns get a lot of print ads taken out.
I'll go you one better. I went through like 20 different articles, and there was the one I liked the best.
That works too.
All right. So just so everyone knows, the movies that we're doing tonight are Poor Things. See if I can remember the order I wanted to do this in.
I've got the order right here. If you mess up, I will correct you.
Perfect. Anatomy. I want to see if I can do it though. Poor Things. Anatomy of a Fall. The Zone of Interest. American Fiction. Past Lives. The Holdovers. Maestro.
Yep.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yep.
Oppenheimer.
Yep.
And Bobby.
Very good.
Ken.
Bravo.
Barbie.
Bravo.
Thank you.
You get your cookies, sir.
My memory hasn't completely gone like my hearing. All right. So let's get started with the movie that I dubbed in our group chat Barbie for Smart People. Poor Things. Poor Things is a 2023 film directed by Yorgos Lanthimos of Lobster fame. Not like the crustacean, but the fucking movie that weirded me and Alexis out.
I hated that movie. So
flames on the side of your face.
Yeah, very much so. Flames on the side of my face. Why don't we just blame the lobster on why I can't move this part of my face anymore? I think that actually checks out. No,
it was written by Tony McNamara. It stars Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, Willem Dafoe, Jesus, Rami Youssef, Christopher Abbott, and Jared Carmichael. It's based on the 1992 novel by Alasdair Gray. The plot follows Bella Baxter, a young woman in Victorian London, who comes to life through a brain transplant and embarks on an odyssey of self-discovery. It premiered at the 80th Venice International Film Festival on September 1st, where it won the Golden Lion. It was released in the U.S. December 8th, and in Ireland and the United Kingdom on January 12th by Searchlight, which is owned by Disney. The film was named one of the top 10 films of 2023 by the American Film Institute and the National Board of Review, and it's grossed over $105 million worldwide on a budget of $35 million. So it's pretty successful for a little indie pick.
And let's face it, the Oscar for Best Actress is either going to go to Emma Stone or Lily Gladstone.
We'll get there.
One of those two is walking away with this.
It received 5 wins at the 77th British Academy
it.
Film Awards. It was nominated in 11 categories at this year's Oscars, including Best Picture, which is why we're talking about it. It won 2 Golden Globes for Best Motion Picture, Musical or Comedy, and Best Actress, Musical or Comedy. I
I
swear
love
to God,
that
I will
it
bring.
gets called a musical or comedy because it is neither.
I
This
mean,
is
no.
not a comedy.
it's
No, it-
funny at times. So the whole story goes like this, and then we can break into the actual discussion and spend some time on this because this one I really want to get into. Essentially, we have like a infant brain in a full-grown woman's body who is Emma Stone, and she's being cared for by a surgeon, Dr. Willem Dafoe. And as infants tend to do, brain develops, start to see things, feel things. She starts to discover her body. She discovers sex, which is the most weirdly uncomfortable part of this movie. Is this infant brain in this full-grown woman's body discovering sex for the first, discovering A, masturbating, B, sex for the first time.
Look, I can stick a grapefruit in there. Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't thought that? So anyway, there's there's another medical professional about the campus who is enamored of her naivete and childlike wonder at the world and wants to marry her. And then in comes Mark Ruffalo, and who hasn't been here before, where the nice guy gets shoved aside and the guy with all the like the money and the hot and the looks and the status, and she's like, I'll just go where you're going. Let's go have an adventure. So her
Yeah, it's not. I'll say it's not just the money and the looks. It's the fact that he's willing to take her out of the house. He's willing to show her the world.
That's right. Again, who hasn't been there? So she goes with him. And they go on
I
a
have
trip.
not been there, for the record.
So she goes on the trip with him.
Have you ever been out of Utah?
Yes, I've lived a great many places. That particular set of circumstances has never happened to me.
So she goes with him on the trip. And they have a lot of sex and a lot of discovery. And he finds out, as all men do, she's a little hard to control. So he sneaks her on a cruise in a box, which is hilarious in a case. And she's on the cruise and she's like, this sucks. Then she meets friends and they start having ideas, and she's still developing and still growing. Her language is starting to get a little bit more refined. And in the hilarious part of the movie, he makes all this money gambling. She proceeds to then give it away and it gets stolen, but she thinks she gave it away. And they are then booted off the cruise somewhere in France, and they end up in Paris, where to make money, she becomes a prostitute. And because she has no moral compass, because she wasn't parented, she thinks this is just fine. Mark Ruffalo ends up being committed to an asylum. She earns enough money over time for prostitution to eventually get back home once she receives word of Willem Dafoe's condition. She goes home. She's more or less developed at this point, becoming, her adult brain now matches her adult body, but she's still somewhat of an amnesiac. She goes to marry the good doctor, and lo and behold, dun dun dun, her husband shows up and says, hey, you're already married. And then we get this whole backstory about how basically he was abusive and shitty, and she was pregnant with their child, and she, having not wanting to be with him nor be the mother of this child, threw herself out a window. She dies, essentially, her brain gone. But she is found by Willem Dafoe, and the baby's brain is cut out of her. The brain is cut out, put back in her, and she is revived through the magic, essentially.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's pretty much just like any port in the storm, any hole it fits in this point.
Yeah. So she then stands up to in my favorite line of this entire movie, they have a face-off, and the husband, again, trying to control her, trying to, get his doting wife to come back, and she's like, no, but I've seen the world, and this isn't going to happen for you. And he was like, ugh, this conversation with women is circular, and and something along the lines of conversation with women is circular, and like all things, you just sometimes have to pull a gun. Like, I've been there.
He pulls a gun on everyone. I love he's like, I think my servants are going to rebel, and he pulls a gun on the coachman. Just like the minute he gets out, it's like I know I'm just stepping into the house, but you're not going to screw me over.
But I find his deciding to punctuate every conversation with a gun to be wildly hilarious. Anyway, he shoots himself in the foot. She ends up saving him, but at the end of the day, she ends up transplanting his brain with a goat, and she goes back to Willem Dafoe's manor, fully formed, fully evolved, fully herself and fully in control of her, fully autonomous. Again, Barbie for smart people. Robert, I don't want to keep talking. I want to bring you guys in here. I loved Poor Things. I gushed about it in our group chat, and I will explain why after you tell me what you thought of the movie.
I don't have a whole lot to say here. My view of it's a little bit different, I think, than a lot of other people's. Your worldview, Mark, bless you, is so drenched in sex and the banalities of physical attributes that when you came to me, when like part of your thing, when you said, "Yay, this is Barbie for smart people," and then I kind of was me about it, and you went, "Yeah, a young woman's sexual awakening wouldn't necessarily resonate with you." And I didn't want to get into it at the time, but my read on this has a lot less to do with sex than I think a lot of people have taken away from this. I mean,
Just
there
let me
is
interject.
sex.
I don't think it's just her sexual awakening. I think this is a little ways back, and I'm not going to talk bad about her because I promise not to. But Melissa said something to the effect of me of, "I want freedom and autonomy," and I think that's what they're going for here. Is that there's gender norms and societal structures placed on women that women tend to brisk against, rub up against, and want to break free from, and are struggling with. And I think this movie speaks to that in a brighter way than Barbie tried to. Go on.
No, I don't disagree with that again, but for me, this was more a treatise on child abuse than it was anything else.
That's interesting. Why do you say that in 50 words or less?
Well, because that's what she is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is what happens. The way Emma Stone ends up at the end of this, I read that as very dark. Like, this had a very again, darker ending. Again, from my reading of it. And this is what happens when you take children and you don't parent them properly.
Okay.
They
When
end up
you-
as prostitutes in Paris and socialists.
Well, yes. When you parent is coaching, and when you don't coach, when you don't guide, when you don't install a moral compass in your child, they become feral and just do what feels good and makes sense at the time.
And that's kind of the story of this movie for the vast majority of it. It's a bunch of self-indulgence. It's a big lack of foresight, which is to be expected in children. And I saw that look you did, Mark, and I would imagine your internal monologue went and expected in women. I know you too well. But
Can I tell you how deeply depressed I am? We did not get a full Damn You Hollywood on this movie. That's why I wanted to start with this, and we're going to devote the most time to it because we're not going to take this long on every single one of these, especially the next two.
I was going to say, if you remember last year's show, this happened with the Banshees of Inisherin, which I think at one point I said, "My God, why did we just do a video on this?" Because
you also said, "Should I fuck off?" And I think I said yes. At the time, we're not going to give this movie the due that it deserves, because we do have to move on at some point. But this one, of the 10, and definitely of the ones we didn't get a chance to talk about, this was my favorite of all of these. But keep going, Robert.
Completely agreed with that. Like, again, of the movies we didn't review that I think is probably the best, it's this one. So part of the problem with this movie, it's stylized in some respects to the point of almost impenetrability.
You talking about the steampunk aesthetic or something else?
Mostly that.
Okay.
My problems. This is a minor tonal thing. The fact that it kind of starts out so traditionally Victorian, and then hard left into Frankenstein territory, was a little jarring.
I hear you there. It didn't bother me, but I am not you and you are not me. Can I ask you both a question? And I'm going to try to do this in an intellectual way and not in my passive aggressive insulting way, though that every fiber of my being wants to. but I want to keep this above the belt and intellectual. So if you'll permit me, I'm gonna ask you both, but I want Alexis to start first before she starts feeling like we just left her the fuck behind in this whole conversation.
Oh, I'm used to that on the show.
Fair enough. Robert made a comment, and he said it in the nicest Robert way possible in the 10-year plus that I've known him. My likes and dislikes are drenched in sex. So clearly the first third of this movie, where there's a lot of that, didn't bother me at all. I thought it was a hoot. You both, in your own ways, neither one of you I would describe as necessarily asexual, but you don't seem necessarily interested in at least sex on screen the way that I'm okay with it. Is that the problem here with this movie for you guys? Is that you're just not interested in seeing sex on screen, or was there something else about this movie that was off-putting?
This movie wasn't off-putting for me so much as it's so surreal. It's very hard for me to take it without that just like king-size grain of salt. Yorgos Lanthimos, I laughed about this with a friend of mine. We talked about
Is it like a whimsical thing? Like it's too whimsical, it's too fantastical?
No, not too whimsical.
Okay.
We talked about student filmmakers that we know, because I went to school for broadcasting. I had to do several student films for just so I could show that I knew how to work a freaking camera and the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a lot of them, and I worked on the student broadcasting over our local TV show. And one of my jobs was we had a show called Etc., which would showcase student films. And the teachers would just give us the student films that the students had submitted. They would be like, oh, and by the way, once you've made your film for a grade, there's a chance it could end up on the network if it passes everything. So I had to filter through those. And yeah, there was a lot of, you guys have seen The Critic, that student film that Jay shows with, and it's like, I am Prometheus, the last man alive. So yeah, a lot of it was like that.
Okay.
So I was joking about Poor Things.
If it's not like that, it's like that Barney Gumble short from that episode of The Simpsons. It's just black and white and weird.
Yes. Oh my God. When I ran Etc., I actually said, no more depressing suicidal crap. Okay. I'm going to have a sense of humor on this shit. But we talked about student filmmakers and how many of them, one of their goals is they want to be remembered. They want 100 years from now, they want to be the directors that the teachers are using as examples. They want to have courses and people are writing their theses. I don't know the plural of that word actually.
Thesis is the plural of thesis, actually. I think
it sounds wrong. It hits the ear wrong though. They want that. They want their style to be remembered. And Yorgos Lanthimos is the director who will be remembered like that. This man is going to have classes taught about him in 100 years about his film style, because him
and David Lynch.
Yeah, very much so. This is like Le Chien Andalou on drugs. This is a movie that, tell me either of you got that reference, please God. This is so bizarre that even when you have those black and white scenes in the middle that are just the transitions, and it's like, it makes no sense whatsoever, but it's compelling. And the costume design, for the record, this movie gets the costume award very easily, no argument. Probably. But the way they dress and everything is just so, it's Daliism. It's very much so like taking a trip into Salvador Dali's mind.
Yeah.
And that's what gets me. It's not like it's just so whimsical. It's so different.
Okay.
It's so bizarre.
Whimsy and surrealism are not the same thing.
The question I started off with for both of you was the gratuitous almost sex.
You asked I was put off about this, and I thought you were mentioning when I texted you. I mean,
that's fine.
Saying, I praise this movie while also saying I never want to watch this director again.
Okay, so my take on what you just said was the surrealism is what put you off, not necessarily the sex. But just in our casual conversations, it seemed like that was the opposite. It would seem like like the sex bothered you in the movie.
No, the sex didn't bother me in the movie, not at all.
Robert.
No, this is a director who, and this goes to this movie. I appreciate it, but I did not enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for the record, yes, the sex is gratuitous. There's a way to get.
Did it because of your religious preferences, or because of just personal, or like I'm curious to see like what bothered you about it.
Well, I'm gonna call it gratuitous because after a certain point, it doesn't serve any purpose.
That's fair.
That's what. To me, that is gratuitous. It is.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Showgirls and Ted Lasso, where he makes a point of saying it's like after a while you don't even see the nipples anymore. Like, yeah, if you start showing sex, after a while, the audience just gets numb to it.
Again, if it's not, I don't object. All right, I mean, two different compartments here. All right, realistic, artistic, critique, and observation and creation. You can put sex in a movie or a story as long as it serves a purpose, as long as it enriches the theme. Fine, whatever. Personally, would I rather not? Yeah, I would rather not see that or read about it. Doesn't, but I can understand that it does serve a purpose. It's not to limit it for the sake of pure censorship would be stupid. I don't think it, I tend to think it is overused because most people writing or making television or movies aren't smart enough to use things other than the baseball bat. When all you look, if you're, the old saying, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of filmmakers who have very limited tool sets.
All right.
I'll say, if I may, I didn't quite get the definite either of your views on this. What I saw was very plainly a human being going through the definitions of id, superego, and ego.
Yeah, so I'm 100% with you there. So let me round out the discussion so we can move on to Anatomy of a Fall by saying the following. I love this movie, but I'm not crazy like a lot of people are, or stupid in the sense that knowing that just because a subject matter appeals to me, and then because I'm interested in the subject matter, I'm now more interested in the movie, and I think it may be better than it might actually be. I think we all do that to one degree or another.
Yeah.
I was just listening back to our discussion of Oppenheimer. You compare our discussion of Oppenheimer, where Robert loved it and I had issues with it, and there's Robert like wanting to shake me, going, "Why don't you like this more?" Which is every other show we've ever had in reverse.
That's our Deadpool review. That's Mark going, I laughed, right. I cried, I had an erection half the time. This was the best thing ever.
Well, I was going to say, so Barbie and Poor Things share a common thread for me that is lost on you, and I don't really know how Alexis feels about it. Alexis is weirdly feminist, not feminist, and it's a funny thing to behold in conversation, but I know for me, the exploration of, woman, female gender roles, a woman seeking autonomy, brisking and rubbing up against the confines of societal structures that are in many ways to make women almost feel like claustrophobic in society. Those things are interesting to me. I don't know if I over-identify with women in their plight because of my mental health background or because of my own personal background and the way that I was brought up, but it's there. It's a part of me. It's who I am, and I gravitate to those sort of things. If you're not interested, Poor Things is going to lose you almost immediately, regardless of whether or not you think it's hot to watch Emma Stone fuck Mark Ruffalo for 20 minutes. So I can see why you struggled with this movie.
I will admit some of the sex scenes did put me out, but those were not the Mark Ruffalo sex scenes. Those were the scenes in the brothel, and those were intended.
Yeah, those were supposed to be gross.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a reason this thing I don't even remember what country it got banned from, but the scene of the father bringing his two boys to the brothel to educate them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have fun raising your 2 future serial killers. That scene apparently got the movie banned in several countries.
Wouldn't shock me one iota. This is part of the reason, again, I think this resonated with me more on on a child abuse level than on a woman necessarily rubbing up against, than purely in a gender like male female thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is what happens to children raised in traumatic situations. They speed run development in some respects, and in others it doesn't happen at all.
Yeah, I will tell you this. I don't mind being made to feel uncomfortable. It's why I got, Alexis was like, oh, I'm the one that got you to watch horror. No, that was Sean Comer and Robert Winfree.
Yeah, we absolutely bullied him into that.
Into the horror genre. I got sock and a soap, man, for fucking 10 years. But my point being,
but now you got Dorian and me to help with the Unholy Trinity, so you don't have to deal with that shit anymore.
When I don't feel like it, yes. It's still my podcast. So anyway, my point is that I don't mind being uncomfortable. I think it's something that we as a society struggle with. People avoid being uncomfortable at all to the point of murder. But true. I, Mark Radulich, don't mind being uncomfortable and like being pushed out of my comfort zone. So I will say this, and this will be the last thing I say on Poor Things, and then we have to move on. Watching an infant in Emma Stone's body act as an infant and be sexualized as an infant was grossly uncomfortable for me, because I am, such a child advocate, mental health person, don't like to see children abused, obviously, and I'm very sensitive to that sort of thing. And it used to bother the shit out of me when we were on the Casual Heroes and Jed would make, child molestation jokes, and I would okay, he's trying to be funny, and I can't be the guy that's like, well, that you can't talk about, because then I'm the dick. But it bothered the living shit out of me, and it bothered me watching this movie, but I understood what the point was and kind of pushed myself through it to get to the good stuff on the other side, which I think is the mark of a good writing team and a mark of a good director and actors, that they can bring you on this journey where you're wildly uncomfortable, and then you come out and go, that was a satisfying ending. Lastly, I think Poor Things, like I said, I think Poor Things is one of the best movies on this list. It absolutely deserves to, when we talk about Oscar snubs, this is one I wouldn't kick off this list. This is what I'd keep.
No, this one absolute. At the end of the day, I actually think this is a better movie than Barbie.
Of course it's a better movie than Barbie.
Well, hang on. I have to say that for your sake, because I know you know that, but I also know there's a 50-50 shot you might decide that's a hill you want to die on today.
Not even a little.
For me, Best Picture is between this and Oppenheimer, and you got Killers of the Flower Moon as your dark horse.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. All right, let's get into.
Yeah. And like we said, Emma Stone, Lily Gladstone. It's a two-horse race. One of them is walking away with the Best Actress.
Yeah, for sure.
Nobody else is even close.
Not even.
And I stand by makeup, costumes. This movie, you should walk away with all of those.
All right. So for those who tuned into this to hear us talk about Poor Things and Barbie, you can come back in an hour, because here we go with the rest of the shit on this list.
And watch the viewer count just suddenly plummets.
How did we get negative viewers? What the fuck?
We are the first podcast in the world to get negative viewers. Congratulations, Mark. World record.
We would not be the first.
All right. Speaking of falling numbers, Anatomy of a Fall is a 2023 French legal drama directed by Justine Triet from a screenplay she co-wrote with Arthur Harari. It stars Sandra Hüller as a writer trying to prove her innocence in her husband's death. Appearing in supporting roles are Swan Arlid, Milo Machado Graner, Antoine Reinhardt. Nobody knows who the fuck these people are. Who cares? Anatomy of a Fall premiered at the 76 Cannes Film Festival on May 21st, 2023, where it won the Palme d'Or and the Palme d'Or Award and competed for the Queer Palm, my favorite palm of all. It was released theatrically in France by Le Pau on August 23rd, 2023, receiving critical acclaim from selling over 1.6 million admissions in France, and won 6 awards at the 49th César Awards, including Best Film. The film also gained significant international success, winning 2 Golden Globes and 1 BAFTA, and was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, obviously. On a budget of $6.7 million, it made a tiny profit of $29.6 million. So, 2 for 2 so far. It goes like this. Basically, we have a couple and their son who's seeing impaired, living in, where is it again?
They're in France somewhere.
An isolated mountain chalet near
Southeast
Grenoble.
France. Yeah, it's Southeast France. Andre and I actually looked it up.
And the husband, like you do, takes a trip out a window and falls to his death, where he's discovered by his son. And so, did he get pushed or did he fall? That's the central premise of this movie. And it's an entire courtroom drama where the prosecution is basically like, he clearly was pushed. These two people hated each other. And the defense is like, he fell. That doesn't mean we didn't hate each other. It's just I wasn't there at the time. At the end of the day, spoilers, she gets acquitted, but it's a long ways getting there. It's like over 2.5 hour movie. And I'm going to say this, and then I'll let you guys have your say on this. I like the movie well enough. It's a talky movie. It's not quite as bad as Tar from last year. This one actually, goes places. But
or women talking.
Yeah. I think this I rewatched a couple of times. I rewatched our last year's Oscar one, and I said there's a way to do a talking movie where you can actually move the plot along, and women talking didn't do that very well. This is an example of a movie that does that. Yeah. This moves things along quite nicely. The courtroom drama, while understated and subtle, is also very dramatic and absolutely moves the plot forward. And there's a lot of tension in there, though you wouldn't, it's like, really, you got tension from this? Yes, I was enraptured by the legal proceedings. But if you're kind of not a thinker, you're going to struggle with this movie. I want to say this, and then I'm going to throw it to you, Alexis, and then Robert. The best part of this movie is the fight. And I'm going to, so I don't project too much, and I don't go into a whole personal thing. Everything said between those two, I fucking been there. The husband making wild and crazy narcissistic accusations at that wife, and her going, "What fucking planet are you on? What reality is this?" And she, like, if you've ever had a narcissistic person accuse you of things, and you're just like, I was making brownies. What do you mean I was cooking meth? Like that's not what happened there. And like they insist that you are. That kind of a thing.
How did you go from
reality?
How did you get to 2 + 2 equals shoe?
Yeah. Yeah. I have been there more times than I care to recount, and I felt for her in that scene. Like we've talked about villains. Robert did a whole podcast series for a few years on villains. He's up there now. Like that was a wonderfully horrible scene to watch that I over-identified with, and it makes the whole movie. Alexis?
It wasn't just that scene was so well done between the two. It's that slam cut where the scene is supposed to, it's supposed to be an audio recording. The husband apparently recorded various bits of audio without his wife always knowing about it. Because he wanted to take from his life, not unheard of with a lot of authors,
Especially
but
struggle writing dialogue.
Oh, very much so. And it cuts, but then we do not see it as the jury sees it. We see them fighting, and then right before things get violent, it cuts back to the courtroom. And it's just that sudden shock because we are watching a very private, terrifying moment in this couple's marriage. And you legit forget it's not private anymore. There's all these people listening to it. And that scene, that cut just threw me. Most of the movie, I was like, okay, this is interesting. Okay. That moment was the moment I was like, this is an awesome movie. Yeah. Not one I'm probably going to want to watch again anytime soon.
No, this has zero rewatchability.
Very much so. But it was that cut, that slam right there that was just like, sold. I'm fine with this movie.
When Robert and I are, when Robert and I discuss like, what is there to watch besides, big blockbuster, stupid shit, high IP movies, this is out there. You got to work for it. I had to rent it off of Amazon, and you wouldn't know it unless it was nominated for this award. But it's a great example of great film exists if you want to watch it, but you have to put the work in, Robert.
I not to potentially derail the conversation. I think my big gripe with the way the film industry has gone is the amount of work you have to put in. Like you and I remember, I mean, we all remember, like there was a time when a movie like this might have gotten a theatrical run near you.
Mm-hmm.
Or it was very quickly available at a video store.
Yeah.
And unfortunately now, with the way the industry has gone, it's either taking up a giant amount of, you either have big stupid stuff taking up giant amount of spaces in the theaters, or you go through Google to try and figure out if this movie is on one of the 5 streaming, if it's in its 3-month window on one of the 5 streaming services you pay for.
Yeah.
And that is too much of a headache. The industry badly needs to course correct on that. But as for this movie itself, I'm with you. There's some really nice editing choices. It's very well acted. This is kind of a throwback because there was a time, Mark, when the American movie studio system could produce great legal thrillers. I don't know what happened to it, but it's not anymore.
Right.
But this
The
is very
writers
much
all got sold to NBC.
True. Look, man, everything got cannibalized into a Law and Order episode and then was recycled 18 times. Like, we just can't do anything anymore with this.
Yeah.
So jokes aside, it was nice to see a throwback in tone and style and genre to that kind of filmmaking. 2.5 hours is a bit much. You could have trimmed this a little bit. This is not one of those like 2.5 hour movies that Mark and I were going to sit here and go, okay, here's 10 minutes, here's 10 minutes, here's 10 minutes that you could whack out of this thing, and let's get this closer to 90. This is more, throughout the course of its runtime, we could shave 5, I think.
There's a lot of long, lovingly navel gazing shots in this movie.
Yeah,
that I kind of had to hit the 10-second button on. I'm like, all right, we get it. The kid looks forlorn. We got it. You know?
And again, you could shave and still get the same effect. And this could be, again, you could get 5, maybe 10. 10 might be a stretch, but you could get 5. And the thing is, when you get by the time you're getting towards the end of this movie, the fact that you're interested in the actual verdict is what's carrying this. Because otherwise, by the time you get to the end, that last like 5 minutes, it starts to really feel it.
Yeah.
So minor gripe, but on the whole, pretty solid.
I don't think it's going to win. Go ahead.
I would say it's very atmospheric as well. This is a movie that relies very little on a score. We hear that freaking steel drum version of, I don't even remember who the original artist is of the song that's playing. But yeah, we must have heard that like 100 times in the first half an hour.
I think I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying it is very interesting how they take more of an atmospheric method with this. So many directors rely on a score to help move the emotion along and help set the tone. This director does not do that.
The most effective thing this movie does, other than make you feel bad for the wife, is the prosecution. You're definitely cheering against them. They are absolutely set up to be the villain of this thing, but they are also, their legal argument is absolutely plausible.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't cheap lawyer tricks. They're making a coherent argument based on the evidence that they have. And you as the viewer are put in this position of going, I don't like you. I don't want you to win. I know she didn't do it, but damn it, you're good at this. You're an effective villain here.
Yeah, the scene where he starts reading segments doesn't work. It's like and the defense is right. Legally, you cannot use what's in the book, which is fiction, as grounds. But the prosecution knows this is still going to taint the judge and the jury if they hear this.
Yeah. It's very subtly insidious. Go ahead, Robert.
Well, there's an art to making a not only a competent villain, but even making them not so much villainous as purely antagonistic, because there's a distinction there. The prosecution here is not acting. They're not acting maliciously. This is
They're doing their job.
Yeah, this is someone doing their job who's very good at it. And doing that in the antagonistic role it's a lost art.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want another, I'm going to reach for this one because the roles are not comparable. But, Kevin Bacon in A Few Good Men does the same thing. He's just doing his job, and he's just making life difficult for the heroes, not because he's a jerk, but because this is my job.
Right. All right, let's move on to. I don't think this is going to win Best Picture, by the way, but it absolutely deserves to be on this list. No argument for me here.
Fine on the list. Absolutely fine on the list.
Yeah,
definitely.
This next one. So again, Alexis, you missed the beginning of the conversation where Alexis is like, aren't I the reason we do all these things? And I said, no, honey, you're not the star of this. However,
I did not come across as that vain.
Yeah. However, we kid and we chide Alexis because, again, we started off with, hey, let's do Man of Steel and Star Trek and all kinds of bullshit. And Alexis was like, why don't you nerds try reviewing a smart movie? And we went, hey, fuck you, bitch. We're going to review Nomadland. How about that? But I have these moments. Where I'm going with this.
The reason I suggested originally it wasn't about, we should review a smart movie. It was because you and I,
thing.
Yeah, you and I were trying to get better about, us finding more followers through social media. And I pointed out, it's like, well, we have nothing to share and nothing to write the trending hashtags during Oscar season.
So two things. One, Sean and I were in our Spun review a couple of years ago. We had this whole long conversation of how we kind of both at one point were indie movie snobs. And there was a part of me that I kind of let that part of me die for a while. And then through over the course of doing this podcast, that's why I said it wasn't just Alexis. There was a bunch of different people kind of coming at me from different angles, where pushing me back into being an indie movie snob again. So I say to all of you, there are times, and 9 out of 10 times, where that's great. I love being immersed back in independent film and out of just doing blockbusters. I love being a fan of movies. Then there's that 1%. Then there's that one movie where I kind of want to hit all of you and be like, I was okay watching Transformers. Okay?
No, you weren't.
You just left me alone.
Mark, listen to me. To me. No, you weren't.
I was okay.
No.
Endgame was the best movie ever, and I was fine.
Stop. You weren't. We accepted that. We all accept the pitfalls and perils of getting out of the sludge. But you're not fine in the sludge.
My point is, it was my funny way of introducing the zone of interest, which makes me think back to all of you people who pushed me into watching movies again and want to hit you. Ugh.
Well, it made me want to hit myself.
Like, why did I do this to us?
Yeah, Robert, I was joking with Mark about how you weren't responding on the group chat between the three of us, because I dropped the line about it's like, well, at least Anatomy of a Fall had some decent direction and good acting. Zone of Interest is like wanting to pull my teeth out, and I was waiting for a response from
funny movie to me, because essentially it's about Auschwitz, and Auschwitz was a terrible, hellacious place and a mark on human history, and a lesson for us about not letting the worst in us, dictate our decision making. And it's like somebody was like, yeah, all of that, but what if we focused on the secretary? What?
Well, hang on. Let me defend this a little bit.
Can you please do? But let me at least tell the people.
A little.
Let me tell the people what this is, and then just jump right in, because that's kind of what I have to say about this movie. So The Zone of Interest for the people is a 2023 historical drama film written and directed by Jonathan Glazer, loosely based on the 2014 novel by Martin Amis. It was co-produced between the United Kingdom and Poland, starring Christian Friedel and Sandra Hüller, who was just in the last movie, as the German Nazi commandant Rudolf Höss and his wife Hedwig. It follows the pair as they strive to build a dream life for their family in a new home right next to the Auschwitz concentration camp. It's all about location, location, location. The Zone of Interest premiered at the 76th Cannes Film Festival on May 19, 2023 to acclaim, winning both the Grand Prix and another prize. And was named one of the top 5 international films of 2023 by the National Board of Review. It won 3 BAFTAs and was nominated for 5 Academy Awards and 3 Golden Globes. It's made $16.4 billion on an unpublished budget. Robert, go ahead.
You know, Steven Spielberg actually said this was the best Holocaust movie since his own.
I'm sure he did, Fableman. Go ahead, Robert.
Hang on. Okay, just so we can hash this out. You got him. Either of you have thoughts on what is the actual best Holocaust movie since Schindler's List?
Oof. I mean, movie? Does it have to be a movie? Because I was going to say the last 2 episodes of Band of Brothers.
Got to be a movie.
Okay.
And those, hang on. I would not count those because Spielberg was involved in them anyway.
All I got is Schindler's List for you.
I hate to say it, I actually need a list of I legit cannot think of any other Holocaust movies since. Okay,
go ahead and look it up while I talk. It's okay.
All right, you guys, you talk. I will look it up.
Okay.
But let him finish, and then we'll come back to the list when we cue you.
Yeah. So let me defend this a little bit, because I got problems with this movie too, and they're going to echo most of yours.
Okay.
Here's the central premise is still is touching on. It's not an accurate quote. But there's a famous quotation from Edmund Burke that is shorthanded into the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. That's not the actual quote. The actual quote is much longer, but it conveys more or less the appropriate spirit. There's a nice stylistic thing that is done here. If you don't have the budget to show the horrors of the Holocaust accurately, utilizing the trick of letting the audience do it for themselves is well used here. So we only hear it.
Right.
And I thought that was a strong that's a strong choice. That I liked. This movie, if I have again, I'm going to echo a lot of your complaints. This is almost a little bit too kind to Huss, who is a monster. But like all human monsters, is human first, then a monster. And trying to find that balance is very, very difficult, especially with people whose crimes are as well documented as, I'm going to say, the Nazis in particular. This got brought up a little bit in there's a couple of different movies about the end of the Third Reich, Downfall, or there's one where Anthony Hopkins plays Hitler, and I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but. And these received a little bit of backlash at the time because they portray these people that we have built up in our head based purely on the worst things they've done, which are some of the worst things ever done or orchestrated or allowed. And the reality is nobody is just that. Great. And, again, not to try and defend Hitler here, I'm not, but when he's kind in some of those portrayals that are meant to be accurate, when he's kind to people lose their minds. Like, what do you mean he was nice to his secretary and she kind of thought well of him? Not to derail what you're saying, but I want to underscore that it drives me crazy because human beings are just that. They are capable of the full range of human emotion. They are kind, they are mean, they are sad, they are happy. And to only portray somebody as evil as Hitler as only the one kind of evil without the rest of the human experience is to do a disservice to him, history, and the human race. It's ridiculous. So the only reason I bring that up is I think this film might actually lean a little bit too far in the humanizing of Huss, because
real quick, does Jojo Rabbit count as a Holocaust movie because it's on this list?
No, that's a World War II movie.
I figured, but I wanted to ask.
That's a fair question.
I needed the definition.
Whoever put those, sometimes people who put those lists together on Wiki or whatnot, like it gets wonky.
Yeah,
like
there's.
the
I mean,
Christmas
Inglorious
movie.
Bastards is on this list.
Well, I
and
was gonna say
obviously
it's like
that's
the
not a Holocaust
people.
movie.
It's like the debate over like, is this a Christmas movie or does it take place at Christmas?
Very true.
Go ahead,
And
Robert.
you have to delve into the themes to determine if it's a Christmas movie. That's why Die Hard is and Die Hard 2 is not. But different discussion. So there's some artistic choices here to just allow to kind of talk about how normal people could allow the most monstrous thing in human history to happen.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the attempt at breaking down the barrier between, and this is one of those things that's really hard for people to kind of come to grips about. And if you're, for the record, anyone out there, if you want to know some of the, not always the specifics, but there's a YouTube channel called World War II. It details World War II 1 week at a time in real time. So it's coming up on the finale. They've been going at it for almost 5 years. And there's a sub-series of that is all about the human atrocities committed, not just by the Nazis, everything the Soviets did, what the Japanese did, and boy, is that awful. A bunch of stuff that the Allies did, because boy, did they do a bunch of awful stuff. And it's fascinating. It's heavy. It's not easy to listen to, but it's very important. It's very well documented. It's very well delivered. So if you want the history, I plug that YouTube channel. Go listen to them. Great stuff over there. But the long and the short of that is you're trying to understand how regular people could allow this. How much did people know? How much do people actually believe? And how easy is it for this to happen? And it's hard. This is one of those things that's very, very difficult to understand. It's a very deeply human discussion to try and have. But understand something, you, me, everybody else, by the way. If, statistically speaking, if you were born in Germany and you were of the appropriate age in the 30s, and like the 20s and 30s, you would have been a Nazi.
Yeah.
And everybody and their dog wants to raise their hand and go, no, not me. Well,
no, that was
what?
like, it was like being a communist in the 50s in the Soviet Union. That was just a part of society. You that was the party you were in. You were a communist. Had nothing to do with ideology. And especially if you wanted to be a government worker.
Yeah, and again, we can easily do the same thing with the Soviet Union. How did everyone know about how many people were being deported to the gulags and the terrible conditions and the millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people that Stalin killed or had killed or ethnically purged or deported wholesale because that he wanted to? And
it's not a one-to-one comparison, but if you want a modern one, and please don't start throwing things at me. I'm doing this for the audience. How many people work in the United States government now? For everyone from tax collectors to law enforcement and the FBI or whatever. And we are, this is the same government that deports plenty of people back to their home countries, Mexico being, the one I'm thinking of the most for the purpose of this discussion. So it's like, oh, I don't want to get in a fight about this. So just go with it. We're putting people in camps. Yes, we have holding state areas for people that we're deporting back to Mexico. These same people work for the same government as the people who work for the IRS. Again, not a one-to-one comparison, but the idea that, oh, well, I wouldn't be a part of that. Well, you would. You don't know the length and breadth of everything the government does. People are just trying to go to work.
Well, hang on. But more to that point, even when the information started coming out, even when people did start knowing, like at that point, what do you do?
Right.
And that's the insidious thing. This is the dangerous part about this. This is why it's important that we understand that the most monstrous things done in human history are done by humans, not monsters. They're not done by the boogeyman. They're done by people like you, like me, and like you and me. We could all end up there. And one of the things this movie does is put that in very stark relief. Hey, these people exist 20 feet from, it's the largest in square footage. It wasn't necessarily the largest in terms of body count because most of that was because of the Hungarian Jews being deported, but sorry, that's a whole other thing. But this is like Auschwitz defines our conception of the Holocaust because it's the most well preserved, more than anything else. There's others that were worse.
Yeah.
In
the interest of time, we gotta move.
Yeah. So again, let me, because there's so many problems with this movie. I want to give it the due that it does deserve.
Fine, just go.
Yeah. So putting regular people 20 feet from the worst thing that's ever happened, and happens every day, every hour of every day, for years.
Hang on one
and
second.
How
the one
easily...
scene where they're talking about the crematorium and the efficiency and the effectiveness of it, and they're talking, because it hit me because I watched this in parts over the last 2 days.
You kind of have to. It's not,
yeah,
it does not hold your interest.
It's a long movie and it's a hard sit. But I also only had so much time to watch this.
Yeah,
I just want to say this, and I'm going to let you have your piece, because it's really the one thing that jumped out about me about this. But aside from the gorgeous cinematography of this movie, which is the one thing I do think it deserves, that and screenplay.
Oh yeah.
But my point is, they're talking about a machine that's going to murder Jews by fire. Like when I had to talk to my guy about fixing my air conditioning. That's the level that this is at. Like, they are talking about, like, we have this machine. If you do this and this, it'll be more effective to do what it needs to do. Well, what it needed to do was burn Jews alive. And that's as casual as the conversation as they're having. And it was like, holy shit.
More disposal of bodies than burning them alive. But, well, let me give you guys the most chilling discussion about the organization of the Holocaust. It was an HBO made-for-TV movie. It's called Conspiracy. It's about the conference wherein a bunch of the appropriate Nazi officials and some just party officials got together, and it's largely taken from both. Everything is either taken from the minutes of that meeting or from the detailed psychological profiles of the real people. It stars primarily Kenneth Branagh as Reinhard Heydrich, who is the architect of it.
I vaguely remember this.
That is the discussion about the organization and mechanization for industrial murder, and it is just
It's like Moneyball for slaughtering Jews.
But it's every business conference you've ever been to.
That's what I'm saying. Like I said, it was handled with the same dispassionate
how do we have to fix the
dialogue as Jonah Hill discussing baseball stats in Moneyball?
We have to fix the crematoria, and we have to monitor our gas usage for that, because if we use X amount, then we have to stop and refill at different points. And again, it's purely mathematical, and that's the horror of it, because human beings can be desensitized to anything.
Yeah.
To the point that they focus on Hedwig's beautiful flowers while you're here screaming, to the point that the movie is grabbing you by the shoulder, shaking you furiously, and saying, "You get it! You get it!"
Yeah, this is contrast the movie.
Yeah, and again, if we want the problems, it's overlong. It looks nice, but there's a lot that doesn't work, that just takes way too long to affect anything.
There's no There's no plot structure of any kind. It's just, this happens, this happens, this happens, curtain.
Yeah.
Narrative,
has no narrative flow.
A pure narrative rather than narrative structure can work, but you got to be real careful with that, and this was not.
No.
And again, there's a lot of problems with this, but I did want to give it the brief due that I do think it deserves. So that's the extent that it gets a thumbs up. The rest of the movie,
okay.
No.
I don't think it deserves to be on this list, by the way. Cinematography, yes. Screenplay, yes. Best picture, no. I can think of 10. I can think of another
director, because it is up for best director.
Ugh, that's I'm even iffy on that.
Yeah. Sorry, we'll talk more about this with the snubs, but I really think Greta Gerwig should have gotten the nomination instead of this guy.
We'll get there, and Robert and you can fight over it.
Well, right. I'll stress a maybe there. Look, Barbie has issues of direction. So does this, by the way. But
all right, let's move on to
Hang on. Alexis has the list now, so we'll be brief.
Oh,
The list was kind of hard to go through because
I'm sure.
apparently, well, here's the thing. What we dub as Holocaust movies is movies that focus on like the concentration camps and stuff, whereas most of the lists talk about people who were just existing during the Holocaust and it affected their lives.
No.
Okay, tell you what. Go through the list again. This is post Schindler's List. Go through what they have. We'll do briefly, like does it count, does it not, and then whether or not it was better.
I'm not doing that. This list is crazy long, and they've got It's also with documentaries and all foreign films.
Geez.
I am not doing that.
Okay,
I
yeah,
did
That's a nice
find-
idea. Maybe another time then.
Okay,
right.
yeah. That's poorly organized.
I found 5 movies that you guys tell me if you think it belongs on this list.
Go get it.
Swing Kids.
No, that's about Nazi Germany, not the Holocaust.
Haven't seen it.
Okay, Life is Beautiful.
Yes, that's a Holocaust movie.
And that is actually one of my favorite Holocaust movies. Jacob the
great.
Liar.
I can't remember.
It's the Robin Williams movie.
Next.
Okay, for the sake that no one saw it, The Pianist.
Yeah,
The Pianist, yes.
for sure.
And The Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
That's all about a concentration camp, yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
moving
like
on.
I said, the rest were all World War II, take place during the Holocaust, but you never actually you see the ghetto, you see the Blitzkrieg, you see Jew suffering, but you don't see a concentration camp. So,
All right. Speaking of ghetto, American Fiction. Is it 2023
Ow!
American?
No, that's as good as that transition was going to get.
As American comedy drama film. By the way, American Fiction is right up there with Poor Things as like my other favorite movie on this entire fucking list.
Yeah, of course it is.
I had to
course it
buy Zone of Interest on Amazon because it was streaming it was in the theaters for like 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
and then it got kicked out for whatever the hell's in theaters right now. And it was so hard to find. This thing did not get a wide release at all.
No,
So
and I almost didn't think I was going to get it. It just got on Amazon February 20th, and like I got it in, it was the last movie I had to watch, and I literally finished it this afternoon. All right,
I watched it last night, and to which I said, I regret that I spent $20 on this. American Fiction, I also bought that movie. I'm glad now to have in my online film library.
which is a film written and directed by Cord Jefferson in his feature directorial debut, based on the 2001 novel Erasure by Percival Everett. It follows a frustrated is a word, novelist professor who writes an outlandish satire of stereotypical black books, only for it to be mistaken by the liberal elite for serious literature and published to be both high sales and critical praise. It stars Jeffrey Wright, Tracy Ellis Ross, Issa Rae, Sterling K. Brown, John Ortiz, Erica Alexander, Leslie Uggams, Adam Brody, and Keith David. It premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 8th, where it won the People's Choice Award. It received a limited theatrical release by Amazon MGM Studios on December 15th, and with an expansion on December 22nd. I actually saw it in the theater. It received positive reviews and grossed $20.8 million on a budget of less than $10 million. So again, this one was also profitable. It was named one of the top 10 films of 2023 by the American Film Institute and has received numerous accolades, including Best Adapted Screenplay at the 77th British Academy of Film Awards. The film received 5 nominations at the 96th Academy Awards, including Best Picture.
For the record, this is probably your winner for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Probably.
I'd say yes.
All right, so real quick, 2 things. One, overly identified with the guy here, not because he's black or whatever, but because you try to put out something intellectual, something that elevates discussion and culture and art, and nobody wants that from you, and then you end up just having to do shit because it's the only thing anyone ever pays attention to. I feel you.
Kind of reminds me of the opening dialogue in the movie Misery. You know, it's like, I never meant for this to be my life. I wanted to write something good.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't remember who.
Well, if you want another example of
Go
that
ahead.
same thing, it's in the last season of BoJack Horseman, but the female character who wants to be a writer and is writing his biography, she's trying to write a serious series of essays.
I'm a complicated man, Robert's brother.
You addressed it. You have to quote it.
Weren't you just saying how you like Transformers, Mark? To be me. To be the Gemini. Go on.
But if you'll recall, again, this is near the end of BoJack Horseman, but she's trying to write these like the serious series of essays that she really wants to, and she sits down and what she winds up writing to try and break writer's block is young adult fiction about a teenage girl who is what was it, like the food court detective, and she can't believe that, one, she wrote this, and two, that like people liked it. And
so I showed my son reality. I played for it rather. My son Robin Williams reality. What a concept! And he does on the B side of the record. I'm really dating myself here. For you kids, stuff used to be on LP on a vinyl disc, about 12 inches. And on the B side, he does like an improv Shakespeare, but he's like, he needs stuff from the audience. Like, shout me ideas, and I'll do that for Shakespeare. And somebody yells Mork, and he's like, no, like, I came here tonight to do something different. I ain't doing the Mork. And I had to explain to my son what celebrities go through, where everyone just wants you to do the thing, and like you want to stretch, you want to do different things, you want to play. And everyone just wants you to do the same fucking things. Do the hits.
When Jim Carrey last hosted Saturday Night Live, they actually had a sketch called The Carrey Family Reunion, in which Jim Carrey shows up and it essentially was, let's see the SNL cast members do their best Jim Carrey impressions, because everyone comes out playing Ace Ventura, The Mask, all of his different characters. And Carrey's just got this look on his face like, shoot me. Fucking shoot me.
I get it.
Yeah.
If you want to convey that concept to your son, there's a Simpsons episode that does it very, very well.
Yes, I'm aware of that. Anyway, so American fiction is, so you have Jeffrey Wright, who he writes books and nobody gives a shit. And he goes to a book conference and he happens to see another woman, and she's very well received and very well attended and enjoyed. And she's reading from her book, and it is All the Ghetto Speech We Know and Love, which is pretty hilarious. And so he's like, all anyone wants from me is the authentic Black experience, but the authentic Black experience has been whittled down to just ghetto shit. So fine, that's what I'll give them. And it's over the top, ridiculous ghetto shit, but because we are a navel-gazing population.
Because this is why satire is dead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This movie is an because everything that happens here, I believe, could happen.
Well, I'm getting to that. So so he writes the book, and of course it's a giant hit. And he's like, and it's like the producers, like, no, I didn't mean for this to be a hit. This is like, this is a protest, is what this is. They're like, well, you got to run with it, pal. So then he ups the ante. He's like, all right, I got to do some dumb shit here because I can't let this be successful. I can't let this be my art. And so he retitles the book Fuck, and they just let him do it. And
I love that scene with him arguing with his agent, just like, see what they say, we'll do it. They both just look over and go, what?
Yeah. How could you let this happen? And then the book gets nominated for a prize, and he's on the committee to pick the prize. And of course, as the summary says, the white liberals are just like, this is the most authentic Black thing ever. And in one of the best parts of the movie that deals with the subject matter, because there's a whole other 2/3 of this movie that doesn't deal with this stuff at all, which is my big problem with this. This is what I said on Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do. I was promised a satire of the authentic Black experience as perceived by white people. I got that for about 1/3 of the movie, and the rest of this movie is his family drama, which is great, but not what I was promised on the marquee. In any case, I loved the scene of two Black authors arguing over what it is to be Black. It was the best part of this movie for me. And I was like, because I saw both sides of their argument. Because she's sitting there saying, yeah,
it's real easy. This is one of my, that scene is great because its mere existence is doing something that desperately needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
It's attacking the notion that were monolithic.
Well, yeah, because he's saying like my whole thing is black people, and this whole movie is an expression of that. Black people are not just one thing. We're not, all like, ghetto rats. We're the great expanse of human existence: poor, rich, tall, skinny, fat, whatever. We're all of these things.
So you get that in the scene when he's watching TV and they're like Black Stories Month, and it's either slaves dramas from Civil War, or they're
roots or boys
guns
in the
or drugs.
Right. Yeah. And so he's like, we're not doing a service to black people by participating in this. And her counter argument, which I think was a good one, was yes, but poor people count. The people in the ghetto, their stories are ones that should be told, and people are interested in them. And he's like, yeah, but you're kind of doing a minstrel routine with this. And she's like, but I'm not. I talked to these people, you asshole. I went and spent time with them. These are their stories. This is their struggle. And the fact that they are struggling is a problem and something that should be addressed. And it's not going to be if we ignore it. It's great. I'm going to let Alexis kind of take over and give her a review of the movie. I just want to end by saying I loved the family drama stuff. It's great. His struggle with the brother and the sister who dies and all of that, and taking care of, and I definitely identified with this, an aging parent who is going downhill fast. All of that was great. It's just, I was a little let down that this movie wasn't more great white hype than what I thought it was going to be, which is what I wanted. But that being said, it's still an awesome movie, and it absolutely deserves to be on this list, Alexis.
Definitely. This is one of my favorites from the nominations. I just watched it today, and again, I'm glad that I purchased it. I'm glad that now I can watch this again. I actually texted my folks. I'm like, okay, next time you guys come over for dinner, which I don't know when the hell that's ever going to happen, but I need to show you this movie. Okay, you need to see this. It is really good. I love Jeffrey Wright. He's been one of my favorite actors for ages. I just love seeing him pop up and stuff. When they announced him as the Watcher, I was like, hell yes. When they announced him as Commissioner Gordon, I was like, again, hell yes. He's awesome in everything.
The one thing that we agreed on with Batman was Jeffrey Wright doing his, 1920s cop routine to the Penguin. How much we love that.
No, he's a really
that movie
great
needed to be just a fart. What the Batman should have been was a recapitulation of 1920s Abbott and Costello style farce in the guise of superheroes.
So we already reviewed the Batman. So
continue, Alexis. You got it.
On something else. I did identify a little bit as a creator. I do understand, not that I've ever written a book, but I do understand the idea of sometimes you just got to make what the customer wants. I have had so many cases of it's like, well, I want to start making some, make pieces that are really cool and everything. It's like, no, they just want more Homestuck crap. I'm like, oh my God.
I wanted to do Death of a Salesman. I get it.
Yeah, pretty much. So I do understand that. I love just the fact that he constantly sees his stuff. I love the scene in the bookstore where he's checking to see if his books are there. And I've known a lot of authors who do that. They just love going into a bookstore. It's like, so do you have so-and-so just to get that little ego boost? And his stuff's with African-American studies. And he's like, my book is nothing about African-American studies.
Right. It's dehumanizing. Because I'm black, nothing that I write matters. I'm categorized as black stuff.
Again, I appreciate this movie attacking the monolith because it's unbearably reductive, and it's the inevitable byproduct of group identitarianism that is sadly running rampant.
And the ending, I think, was absolutely brilliant because there was no way, I think, that any other way they could end this without feeling like they were pandering to some group. I even love that, he's like, well, some people are like, well, he should get back with Coraline. And it's like, yeah, sure. I think a lot of us like that, especially since those actors had great chemistry. But the director who, I could hear you grinding your teeth while watching this, Robert, and Mr. Adam Brody. Even he's like, well, that's too rom-com-y. I'm like, shit, actually, he's right. I just love that he's like, there is no way to win. And I like that message. I just like that it's like, sometimes we try so hard, but In the end,
Doesn't even matter.
maybe we're just not ready to win it yet. You know?
Robert, your thoughts real quick?
No, just echoing a lot of what's already been said. So it's fun.
Okay.
Again, this is probably your best adapted screenplay winner.
Do you think it deserves to be on the list for Best Picture?
For Best Picture? Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Do you think Jeffrey Wright deserves? I know he's not going to win the Oscar. He is not going to win Best Actor, but do you think he deserves to be on the nominees?
Oh, I think 100%.
I do too.
Hang on, I'm trying to think if there's someone who's not already on that list who I would put there over him. I do this. Whenever you ask me that, I do it in reverse. Like, is he like the last place guy, and who would I knock off in favor of? And ultimately, no, I don't mind him being there.
Right.
I would say actor and leading role. The only one I'm not familiar with is Coleman Domingo and Rustin. Like, I didn't see Rustin. I don't.
Well, those are the 4 movies we did not review here. I got to review American Fiction elsewhere, but here on either Damn You Hollywood or Triple Feature, we did not get to any of these 4 movies. The next 3 we did a triple feature of. These were easy to group together. And so we're going to touch on them very lightly because Robert and I did an extensive review of Past Lives, The Holdover, and Maestro. So real quick, Past Lives is a 2023 American romantic drama film written and directed by Celine Song in her feature directorial debut, starring, who cares? It follows 2 childhood friends over the course of 24 years while they contemplate the nature of their relationship as they grow apart, living different lives. The plot is semi-autobiographical and inspired by real events in Song's life. It premiered at Sundance January 21st and was released in the United States on June 2nd, my birthday. Top 10 film of the year for the National Board of Review and the American Film Institute, and received various accolades, including 5 nominations at the 81st Golden Globes, including Best Motion Picture or Drama. It received, at the 96th Academy Awards, it received nominations for Best Original Screenplay and Best Picture. On a $12 million budget, it was just slightly profitable at $26.6 million. You can check out Robert and I's triple feature on this. Neither one of us thought this deserved to be a Best Picture nominee. This is another one I could kick off the list pretty easily.
Yeah,
we had plenty of kind things to say about it. It's a very nicely made movie.
It's hard to identify because this is a movie that is aiming at a very neat. It's like In the Heights, Mark. When you and I reviewed In the Heights, it's like we're sure it's good, but we are clearly not the audience that this movie is speaking to. So
I
it's
think
kind
what
of
I said
hard
on
for
the
us to
review at the
take on
time
it.
was I don't understand why they thought this was one of the 10 best pictures of the year.
That I agree with.
I don't though. Like I could think of there were a couple of movies there were definitely movies I would have put ahead of this one.
No, that's
here.
what I'm saying. I'm saying I agree with you.
Okay.
I was saying that I'm willing to give it semi the benefit of the doubt again because I am not the target audience who's going to identify with it. But at the same time, I feel that there probably were some other movies that were better.
What did you think of the movie in general?
Boring.
Okay.
I'm sorry. The only
You're
reason I
allowed to think
wasn't
it's boring.
checking my phone half the time watching it was because of the frickin' subtitles.
I think Robert and I agreed it was a little too subdued.
This is a minor thing, but it did drive me nuts. I hated that the adults never changed their look over 12 years. When when we cut to the 12 years later and they show up and like, oh, we're married. It's like, couldn't you have given at least like one of them a wig or something to show that they've grown out there? It's a minor thing, but
Yeah,
I
don't disagree.
I am always one of those, like, if time is, it's like, no, there has to be some difference in the 12 years. I just was not, that bugs me. It's a nitpick, but it bugs the hell out of me.
Anything on Past Life, Robert? If not, we can move on.
As a guy famous for his nitpicks, you're allowed. The more I've reflected on this one, the more I appreciate it, but there's several movies on this list ultimately that I think I would sub out, and this wouldn't be the first one I'd knock off of this list, but it would be the third.
I would replace this one with I don't want to get too far into the Oscar snubs thing, but I can tell you right now, gun to my head, take one movie off, replace it with another one. What would you do? Godzilla -1.
Oh yeah.
Look, Godzilla -1 should be here over several of these, but
this is what I'm choosing to switch it with.
Did you guys see the picture I sent of Hollywood or of Godzilla destroying Hollywood, saying this is what's going to happen if someone doesn't win Best Visual Awards?
Nice.
That was good. This, if I were to rank these 1 through 10, again, this is not number 10 for me, but
No, that's still zone of interest.
this is 7.
Okay.
So
I can give you that.
Alrighty, next is The Holdovers. The Holdovers is a 2023 American comedy drama directed by Alexander Payne and written by David Hemmingson. Set in the winter of 70-71, the film stars Paul Giamatti as a strict classics teacher at a New England boarding school who is forced to chaperone a handful of students with nowhere to go on Christmas break. Divine Joy Randolph and Dominic Sessa play school cafeteria manager and one of the students who stays on campus. The Holdovers premiered at the 50th Telluride Film Festival on August 31st, 2023, and was released in the U.S. by Focus Features on October 27th, 2023. It received positive reviews and has grossed $43 million. The film was named one of the top 10 films by the National Board of Review and American Film Institute, and received many other accolades, including 2 wins at the Golden Globes and British Academy Film Awards. Randolph won for Best Supporting Actress award at both ceremonies. The Holdovers also received 5 nominations at the Oscars, including Best Picture. It's made $42.9 million on an unlisted budget. Robert and I pretty much gushed over this movie. Of the 3 that we did in the triple feature, this one got high praise from us. If it wasn't for the fact that there were 3 movies with, in serious contention for Best Picture, this would be my pick for Best Picture. Like in a year where those 3 movies just don't exist, this would be it. This was on everybody I know's like favorite films of 2023.
The Holdovers, if it had released any year in the last 3 apart from this one, would have won. Almost walking away.
Mm-hmm.
It's that good.
So again, for my thoughts and Robert's thoughts, check out our triple feature. Alexis, what did you think of The Holdovers?
Absolutely loved it. If you guys remembered, we did our top 10 best pictures of the year after our Rebel Moon plug review.
Mm-hmm.
I had a TBD because I said that I hadn't seen The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, or The Boy and the Heron yet, and I knew that one of them would get that spot. Robert, you predicted that I would put The Boy and the Heron on there. I would put The Holdovers. I just remember just genuinely enjoying it. I loved it. I love seeing Divine Joy Randolph get this nomination, especially after we've seen her in Only Murders in the Building, which she's
probably
great
in. She's probably going to win Best Supporting Actress for this and deserves it.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Mark, what did you say?
I know what the fuck a pat a song is.
Yeah, I love that scene.
So good.
It was a great bit. I actually think this movie has the potential to become a new holiday classic. I think people are going to be watching it more at Christmas because, it does take place at Christmas. Christmas is a huge plot point. I see it having that potential.
I love the cinematography of this, and I love the use of the filter on the film to make it look aged.
It looks like a 70s film.
So, yeah, definitely.
Go
ahead.
I feel so bad for Paul Giamatti. Any other year, this performance would have won. Any other year. Almost.
Yeah.
There's a handful of other truly iconic performances this wouldn't have overcome, but once again, you go back. If we go back 5-6 years, this performance he turned in here would have won. Unfortunately, this year he's got some competition that I don't know if he'll be able to overcome.
Side note, nice touch that they constantly changed. I don't know anything about makeup in film, so I don't know how they did the lazy eye exactly. I'm sure there's some kind of contact lens you can use it, but apparently they actually switched back and forth repeatedly between shots on which one they did the lazy eye on. And I actually thought that was really clever, since there is a plot point of I can't even remember the kid's name, saying it's like the students and I, or it's like our classmates always wondering
which one to look at.
It's like, exactly. I loved that. That was a great touch.
It brings up that's a wonderful production thing, and then it brings the emotion home when he does tell him it's this one.
Yeah, he doesn't even say anything else. It's just like you expect to say something hard. It's like, it's this eye. That's all he needed to say.
Yeah, The Holdovers is it's up there with Poor Things for me and Oppenheimer. Just
If we had to
Beautiful,
whittle this list down to 5,
Mm-hmm.
Holdovers is still making it.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just such a good, it's a movie that says so much and it makes you feel so good.
Yeah.
It really makes you feel great watching it.
It's an absolute joy of a film.
And then there's Maestro.
This movie has fallen in my estimation the more I've thought about it. Like,
Okay, well,
we were decently kind to it in our triple feature.
Mm-hmm.
I have thought less and less of it on more and more. The more I thought about it.
I'll tell you what. The more I think about it, the more I can think this is joining past lives, and me cut this from this list.
I'm more than happy to keep Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan in the actor nominations. They were incredible in this.
That was a big conversation from last year too, where there were things where we were like, oh, we think individual performances or individual craft elements deserves an Oscar nomination. As a sum total, it doesn't deserve to be Best Picture. And I honestly think Maestro again. There are 2 or 3 other movies I can think of off the top of my head that I would have replaced Maestro with. But for the people.
For the record, this is my number 9. This is barely above Zone of Interest for me.
I kind of liked it. At no point did I feel
you hold
bored.
That thought? Maestro is a 2023 American biographical romantic drama film that centers on the relationship between American composer Leonard Bernstein.
How dare they put romantic on the title?
Yeah.
That's an air quotes, by the way.
Speaking of the fight and anatomy of a fall, Jesus, these two. And his wife, Felicia Montalegre. It was directed by Bradley Cooper from a screenplay he wrote with Josh Singer. It was produced by Cooper, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, Christy McCusker-Krieger, Fred Berner, and Amy Durning. The film stars everyone's favorite Me Too, Carey Mulligan as Montalegre, alongside Cooper as Bernstein, Matt Bomer, Maya Hawke, and Sarah Silverman, who wandered onto set and got a part, appear in supporting roles. That joke will still always be funny to me.
It's the only way she gets any work.
Maestro premiered at the 80th Venice International Film Festival on September 2nd, where it was nominated for a Golden Lion. Received limited theatrical release on November 22nd before being released on Netflix. So, hey, all you lazy film watchers, you can actually watch this one on Netflix.
I don't recommend it, but you can.
Do a double feature with this and Blonde, and then Hate Me in the Morning. It received
Hate in the Morning will hate you now.
I don't have to wait on that one.
Critics, and was named one of the top 10 films by the National Board of Review and the American Film Institute. It's received 7 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Actor, as well as nominations for 7 BAFTAs, 4 Golden Globes, and 2 Screen Actors Guilds. It had a budget of $80 million, and it didn't make any money because it's a Netflix movie. All right, Alexis, take it away.
So while reading up on this movie, apparently both Spielberg and Scorsese wanted to direct this. Is apparently the idea, not the script per se, but just the idea.
Scorsese directed it, still be going.
Yeah, no kidding. No argument here.
We can't release 2 Scorsese movies in the same year. It would do bad things to the space. It would do bad things to space time. Just don't do it.
It would do bad things to people's bladders because they wouldn't be able to sit through them both without needing something, or it's like having something burst and needed to go to the doctor.
As you were, lady.
Apparently, they both wanted to direct a biopic on Bernstein. They saw what Cooper had in mind, and they both actually said, you know what, he deserves to direct this. Apparently, Bradley Cooper is, I guess he actually studied music and composing briefly. There is an incredible passion to his performance in this. Mm-hmm. He blew me away with how great he was. I like the style, going from the old black and white. Did you guys talk about the whole Juno's controversy when you discussed this?
No.
Okay. What? I was curious.
I didn't know there was a Juno's controversy.
We briefly touched on the naming conventions because Bernstein's also kind of a contemporary of the guy who a dance choreographer and kind of director who originally he directed the lion's share of West Side Story, the original. And he changed his last name because it's Jewish. It would used to be, I want to say it's Rabinowitz. And he couldn't, And so he changed it to something else, and it kind of bothered him. And I saw a documentary on him and some of his because again he did a lot of both writing and dance choreography and whatnot. And again, he did West Side Story because somebody came to him and said, "Hey, can we do Romeo and Juliet? Yeah, I want to make a production number out of it." He went, "Well, let me think about it." And again, we get West Side Story out of that because that's all it is. And the scene in the beginning, near the beginning of the movie, when Bernstein is being advised to at least change his name, we touched briefly on that, but not a whole lot, because the movie only touches on it for like the one scene, and then it's never brought up again.
No, the controversy about the nose is that Bradley Cooper wears a prosthetic nose in the movie. And
God forbid he wear a prosthetic to look like the guy he's playing.
Well, apparently there was a lot of people saying that was the Jewish equivalent of blackface.
Well, go fuck yourself.
It's a nose. If he'd worn he had bushy eyebrows too. Like,
yeah, it's like I remember reading that, and then I pulled up pictures of Leonard. Forgive me, I don't remember off the top of my head what Leonard Bernstein looked like.
Robert and I are getting a film financed. It's the life and times of Kamala, the Ugandan headhunter. I will be directing and playing Kamala. I'm doing the whole thing in blackface body. I will have painted stars on. Okay? This is what we're doing.
I'm waiting to watch what few viewers we have. It's like, and 0.
Mark, we both know we need to make you Akeem the African Dream. Like, that's
not wrong. That'll be the next movie. So I don't know if you know this, Alexis, but Akeem the African Dream is a big fat white guy.
So anyway,
wrestling is racist.
Maestro. I didn't think it was that I enjoy.
Get your hands out in front of your face, please. Thank you.
That is a movie that I was carried away, not by the movie itself, but by the performances. Cooper and Mulligan, I thought, were absolutely brilliant. I think this was honestly some of Cooper's best work. And I don't know if I agree with you guys about whether or not it deserves to be taken out of the list. I think it's fine. It's not going to win, but whatever.
Well, so, let me reiterate my point about why it's on this list. Because I quoted the Action Button Reviews guy when I talked about this, because he has a line about The Last of Us, the video game, that it's a great game by default. Because if you look at all the boxes that people check for a great video game, The Last of Us checks all of them. So its default setting is multi-award winning. And there's a bit of that going on here.
I will say, I think there is an argument to be made. We talked about Paul Giamatti and how he could have won Best Actor for this if it was any other year. I think Cooper would have stood a chance to win Best Actor for this. I genuinely do.
He might have a chance. For me, he's the bronze medal in this year.
All right.
And there's nothing to be ashamed about with that. But that, to me, as good as this was, again, you're falling short behind both Cillian Murphy and Paul Giamatti, and which order you put those two in is subject to personal preference almost.
I think it's important to remember that, things are good. Things are great. They're not flawless. And Robert and I tend to key in on, we'll tell you what's good, but we're also going to tell you what's bad about things. And I think the more we talked about Maestro, that review went something like, hey, Past Lives is great. Don't know why it was named Best Picture quality, but it's still a fine movie. Holdovers is awesome, deserves to be here. Maestro is problematic. And depending on your thoughts on what makes a Best Picture, it may or may not deserve to be there.
Again, this is not the worst of this list for me, but it's very close.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not like we said the Maestro was up there with the Expendables 4. I mean,
no, it's absolutely not like that. And moreover, it's not nearly as fall on its face pretentious as you referenced Blonde, because there's some obvious parallelisms there. So it's not that either.
Right.
Both Cooper and Mulligan, like other years, man, you might have had a legitimate shot. Unfortunately,
of all the stuff I've seen Carey Mulligan, and this is one of the few times I didn't want to punch her dead in the face, which was a nice change.
Well, most of the time she's trying to make you want to punch her in the face. So.
I will say it also does make me want to continue to see Cooper direct.
Yeah, I would see him direct something. He did the one movie that gets remade 1,000 times.
A Star is Born.
Yeah, I think he did a halfway decent job with that too. So I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind letting him direct my biopic of Kamala, the Ugandan headhunter.
He's a pretty good director. He is becoming one. I think my other thing about this, and I laughed about this when we reviewed the movie, is Bradley Cooper just so desperately wants to win an Oscar, like desperately.
Got a good shot at it for Best Actor. All right,
no,
moving on.
Again, no, he doesn't, and he's done everything you can do. He's done the Tom Hanks trajectory. He started in comedy, then he's done the mental patient. He's done the suicidal guy. Now he's done the biopic about the gay guy. Like, what more can he do? I've done everything I can, and I can't win an Oscar.
He's
even voiced a talking raccoon.
He's also gonna do the biopic of the natural Butch Reed.
I don't know if you're joking or not. I don't get the joke.
Look, I would absolutely watch him direct the story of Dusty Rhodes. That's all I'm saying.
That's fair. All right, moving on.
You do not get to be Dusty Rhodes, Mark.
Speaking of the atomic elbow, it's fine.
Bionic elbow. What's the matter with you?
I'm sorry. Speaking of the bionic elbow, Killers of the Flower Moon. So these next two movies, we got the full damn you Hollywood experience. Hang on, I'm putting this on here, and it's not coming off until he comes up with something better.
You are shaved with the beard, and you do have a pacemaker.
It is all about the game and how you play it. Anyway, Killers of the Flower Moon.
And you knew all about your father-in-law's various sexual abuse scandals well in advance.
Anywho.
Sorry.
I think we may have broken Robert.
Killers of the Flower Moon is a 2023 American epic Western crime drama, co-written and produced and directed by Martin Scorsese. Eric Roth and Scorsese based their screenplay on the 2017 nonfiction book by David Gran. Set in the 1920s Oklahoma, it focuses on a series of murders by the Osage members and relations in the Osage Nation after oil was discovered on tribal land. The tribal members had retained mineral rights on their reservation, but a corrupt local political boss sought to steal the wealth. This was an Apple TV jam in association with Paramount Pictures, and it was a $200 million Marvel budget. It made $156.8 million, so this is the first one to lose money. But it doesn't matter because this was Apple Finance. So this is like, dude, anything.
This is a rounding error for Apple. That's
I was going to say,
company.
Amazon and Apple are going to change the way films are financed because it's going to be who gives a fuck. You know, if we want to make a movie, we'll make a movie. We don't care if it makes money. Apple and Amazon are the Elon Musk of film right now. They have enough money that they don't care. Real quick, Robert and I loved Killers of the Flower Moon. Robert, I think a little bit more than I did. We had a lot of very nice things to say about it. It's a beautiful looking movie, very well acted. I gushed about Lily Gladstone's performance, and I think she's up there for Best Actress. And she was my winner until I saw Poor Things, and now I can't decide between her and Emma Stone.
Best Actress is between her and Emma Stone, and third place is so far back it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No argument.
Yeah, it's an absolutely tremendous movie. And in a year that it doesn't have to compete with Oppenheimer and Poor Things, it wins the Best Picture, in my opinion. It is one of the best movies on this list.
I would still go holdovers over this personally, but it's closer.
It's tough, man.
Again, like those are. Hang on, you take away Oppenheimer, it's those two.
Yeah.
But,
I was kind of laughing, though. I remembered back when we reviewed Oppenheimer because we talked about the cast. So we said, okay, here's the short version, everyone. And then you watch Killers of the Flower Moon. It's like, here's the cast.
Everyone else.
Everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So between these two movies, I think they cast everyone in fucking Hollywood.
There was a period of 2 weeks when everyone was in one of these two movies.
So if you want to hear Robert and I, so again, and I have to say this every so often because I have to remind fucking people, Robert and I like stuff. And more specifically, Robert likes stuff. He tends to not like crap, or if he likes crap, he kind of keeps it to himself in a dark corner, naked, eating cheese. Either way,
there is no cheese and there is clothing. What's the matter with you?
Oh, come on. It's not just cheese. It's shredded cheese straight out of the bag, and you know it.
I do not eat shredded cheese out of the bag. I at least put that on a baked potato.
You guys are doing so well. So anyway, my point is that on the occasion that it bothers me because this happens a little too much for my liking. The criticism that we don't like stuff or that we're overly critical. No, we just call it as we see it. And I'm sorry if we hurt your precious fucking feelings about it. But if you're looking for an example of when did we like stuff, when did Robert gush about something, it was the Killers of the Flower Moon episode. So with that said, if you want to hear us,
than the movie.
Please listen to that podcast. But what did you think of it, Alexis?
Greatly enjoyed it. The acting was great. It is a beautiful movie. It's a stupid thing to say, but I do love that Martin Scorsese worked so extensively with the Osage tribe, with the people down there to get everything.
Your family? Didn't your mom and dad come over and watch this?
Oh, they were supposed to, and then there was delays and delays and delays. And this is why I made the joke earlier about the idea of those two ever getting over here for dinner, because every time I'm like, hey, I'm going to cook dinner. You guys should come over. Yeah, guess what? Something else happens.
So they haven't seen it then.
They haven't seen it yet. And I told them, it's like, you guys need to go, still need to freaking see this.
Mm-hmm. All right. I cut you off because I wanted to know what they thought, what two ham and eggers thought of it, but keep going.
So yeah, it really did blow me away. I believe this is probably Scorsese's most ambitious project to date, and I think it really paid off.
Did you not see The Irishman?
No, hang on. This is more ambitious than The Irishman.
I guess that depends on how you're defining ambitious.
Okay. Irishman feels more like it was in the classic Scorsese wheelhouse. Killers of the Flower Moon feels like he took a step out of his comfort zone to make this, because I refuse to believe that Scorsese grew up knowing a damn thing about the Osage tribe.
Okay. I think when you said, the only reason why I gave you a quizzical look was when you're like ambitious, I was thinking of some of the technical aspects of The Irishman, the de-aging of De Niro and all of that, where you don't really have to... There was no great technical achievement with Killers of the Flower Moon. It's a nicely made movie, but I would not say, when I think of ambitious, I'm thinking you're stretching technically, but that's also a me thing. It's not worth arguing.
Well,
okay.
He's stretching narratively, and he's definitely stretching scope. This is
a
much broader story than Scorsese's told in a long.
Yeah, that's why I'm not fighting with her about it, because I'm not in the right here.
It's a different wording. You're correct if that's your definition. I'm correct if that's my definition. Yeah. No argument. Right. No, it's interesting because it is a beautiful movie to look at, but it is also a very ugly movie to look at. The colors are purposely muted. It's very brown and gray. There's not a lot of brightness to it. It really sets a
said that the color paletting was like all beiges and blacks and everything, but they all popped.
I was saying it just really sets the tone.
Yeah.
Of the whole movie, and I really liked that. And again, Lily Gladstone was incredible. We need to see her in more stuff. I really want her to make more movies. And for God's sakes, do not put her in like another Marvel project with Echo or something, okay? Disney, stay the hell away from this woman.
Please. So in case anyone didn't see Robert and I talk Killers of the Flower Moon and isn't going to, still my favorite scene in that entire movie is when she's like, hey, did you try to kill me? And he has to like hoof and jive and, juggle and, tap dance. And she walks out of the room disgusted and he looks at what's his face. It's like, I fucked up, didn't I? Oh, it's so good.
If there's a snub that came out of this movie, it's not nominating DiCaprio and De Niro. And I get not wanting to because they have enough hardware, but man, is DiCaprio good playing this idiot.
Yes, quite good.
For a guy who has not played an idiot in so long, he falls into that role so easily.
Hey, remember when I said it's not fair to accuse Robert of not liking things? Oppenheimer. We did a almost 3-hour podcast. I just rewatched that. I say this with love in my heart. You guys are my good friends. Robert, you're one of my best friends. Alexis, I love you dearly. I love to abuse you, but I also love you dearly. I wanted to kill you both on that review. Listening back to it, if you took a drink every time I rolled my eyes, especially at you, Alexis, you would be dead.
Alcohol poisoning.
But my favorite part of that review is us arguing over the atomic bomb sequence. And Robert trying to explain to me that that's what it looks like, you fucking moron. And me going, but I wanted Independence Day. And you're like, you're an idiot. Please leave the podcast. Like, Robert has never really wanted to push me
that one. All Mark wanted was that one scene to be directed by Michael Bay.
In all fairness,
the one
Robert,
scene that he hopes somebody told Nolan to smuggle in 20 crates of fireworks.
There's a line from our last year's review where Robert says, we don't always agree, but we're not disagreeable. And to Robert's credit, he's never wanted to push me in the pool on a podcast, except for Oppenheimer, where for whatever reason, my opinion that I just wasn't moved by the atomic bomb sequence annoyed him to the point where he's like, fuck you, Radulich.
Not quite that far, but that was one that was the closest I've come. Yes.
Okay,
So
let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. I think the three of us are in agreement: Best Picture winner and Best Actor winner.
Yeah, you know what?
Probably
at this point, I'm not going to read
probably
the
Best Director.
People know what it is, but I'm 100% in agreement on this. I think Oppenheimer actually wins Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a full prediction segment in a couple of minutes, but I've been thinking long and hard about this. I think it's a 2-horse race between this and Poor Things.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Again, if I were to rank these in my personal order of preference, Poor Things and Holdovers are kind of neck and neck for second for me. But any way you swap those two around is largely down to which one spoke to you more, I think.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think the Academy feels pressured for not giving more to Greta Gerwig, so they're like, well, we have to make the women happy, so so they don't burn us to the ground. I think Poor Things ends up winning this, but I think
I'll say
integrity is maintained, Oppenheimer wins.
I will say I was kind of surprised Emily Blunt got the nominee for Best Actress. I mean, she's good in this, but I didn't think she was.
Well,
yeah, I forgot she was in the movie.
Okay, hang on, but let's do the thing again, right? We have 5 roles that have to be filled. Name someone who was not nominated other than her that deserves it more.
I mean, there's an argument for Florence Pugh.
She's in this thing for 2 minutes.
She's not in it for 2 minutes. We had a whole conversation about that.
Or unless you mean her for something else this year that you think she should be nominated for. No. Again, my point stands. Like, okay, there's 5 nominees for Best Actress.
Mm-hmm.
Name someone not on that list who deserves to be nominated more than Emily Blunt.
Oh, I thought you meant just from Oppenheimer.
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and of course, we all agree Best Supporting Actor is going to Robert Downey Jr. from this.
Almost.
No, it isn't. That's going to Gosling.
Really?
Okay, let's have this fight in 5 minutes. So, sticking with Oppenheimer, on the review itself for the people, we were obviously, Robert was largely complimentary of the film. We had a big long conversation about how great Christopher Nolan is. He's probably the most complete modern mainstream director going right now. And this was a big dick swing for Chris Nolan. And we made the joke, like, he was a free agent coming out of Warner Brothers after Tenet. They threw a giant bag of money at him and said, "Make whatever you want. Make us a winner." He fucking unzips his pants, and out comes this fucking biopic of the guy who made the bomb. And Universal execs had to be fucking sweating bullets, and he makes not only
$1 billion,
a Best Picture nominee, possibly a winner, but one of the highest grossing movies worldwide of the year. This guy can do no wrong.
Yeah, again, it's really good. I am not to dovetail too far into our prediction segment, but Best Supporting Actor, it's 2 horses. It's Robert Downey Jr. or it's Ryan Gosling, and my preference for that should be well established by now. However,
Robert, where do you stand?
However,
it's
I
either
acknowledge that
it's Sterling K. Brown, Robert Downey Jr., Robert Robert De Niro,
I would give it to
Ryan
Sterling K.
Gosling,
Brown's.
and Mark Ruffalo.
I would give it to Sterling K. Brown's abs, but he's not going to win it.
Again,
Abs.
ultimately, this comes down to those. It comes down to RDJ or Gosling,
All right.
and
We still have one more movie to talk about.
there's
I have been
nothing to
dreading
say.
this.
There's nothing.
I don't
to
want
say
to talk about this
this.
fucking movie anymore. Because here's the
You
thing.
wanna-
You don't.
You
Here's
still
the-
want to
here's the
review this
thing.
with me, but
We weren't going to review Barbie. Robert had grandfathered in a
For-
refusal.
okay. For the record, just so everyone
Mhm.
again, last time I'm gonna have to tell this story.
Yeah.
2016. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Barbie is on the schedule, and if memory, because it was scheduled to be released,
And this was when it was an Amy Schumer movie, and it was Fat Barbie.
and Amy Schumer was supposed to be Barbie, and Mark said Barbie's on the list. I want to take my 4-year-old daughter to this because she was 4 at the time. That's how long ago this was supposed to have happened. And I said, Mark, I like the show. I love you. I am not going to be a 34-year-old single guy. No, it would have been 32. I'm not going to be a 32-year-old single man watching the Barbie movie in a movie theater. I'm not going to do it. And he said, fine. And then it didn't get released, and it didn't get released, and it didn't get released, and it didn't get released. And when it did get released, Mark said, oh, so you're using your exemption for the year on this. I said, no. I exempted myself from Barbie a decade ago.
So you technically still had an extra get out of jail free
All
card.
right, so
I did.
tag me in, Brett. So now Barbie is coming out. Now Barbie is with Margot Robbie. We don't know that it's going to be a cause célèbre. We don't know that it's going to be like a feminist movie. We have no idea that it's going to be a cultural phenomenon. And at the time, it wasn't coming out the same day as fucking Oppenheimer, creating the Barbenheimer effect.
Speaking of Fat Barbie, by the way, did you guys see Amy Schumer was in the news recently?
No.
For looking like she has
Stop.
steroid face, yeah.
No.
She apparently has Cushing's disease.
Moving on. Not doing that. So I don't think I have anyone. I don't think I need anyone special to do Barbie with. And at the time, Ronnie is bugging me about wanting to come back on and do more podcasts. And I was like, sure. And he was like, do you have anyone to do Barbie with? Because I know Robert doesn't want to do it. And I'm like, no, actually, I don't. Why don't we do that as like a triple feature? Because it'll be a dumb shit movie that you and I will have a laugh at. And we batted around a bunch of different ideas. And eventually I came up with, we'll do a triple feature with that, Sisu, and the Machine. And I jokingly called it, look, I made the polyamory flag. You know, a hot blonde stand between two beefy bearded men.
Hang on. One beefy guy, one skinny.
Yeah. Well, either way. Still works. And
Sort of.
again, we don't know what Barbie's going to be yet. So Ronnie thinks he's like, this is it. And, I'm going to be Mark's favorite podcast buddy because I helped him out with this stupid review. Then Barbie comes out, and it's a cultural phenomenon. And it's attached to, and it's on the same day as Oppenheimer. And so the whole world goes to see both movies on the same day, creating the Barbenheimer effect.
Pretty much.
Now this is something I have to talk about. And Ronnie is looking at me trying to get out of it. He's like, I didn't want this. Like, but he, good guy. He came in for the review, even though he tried to back out. And needless to say, he had some opinions about the treatment of men in Barbie, which conflicted with my thoughts on how the movie treated men. And we argued about it for an hour to the point where we got nothing else done in that movie. I was not happy.
Okay, hang on. Let's end this. Let me end that debate for you very briefly.
No, not yet.
The movie treats men badly.
Anyway.
So what?
So I'm now stewing for the next few months about how I didn't really have a good Barbie review, like the one I wanted. So I get a second shot, though. Because then the movies that don't suck and some that do, guys, bring me on their end of the year review. And you know how I said before the podcast, hey, nobody try to make themselves, don't go into business for yourself. Don't make yourself the star here. Shoved Neil
stones in that glass
Chris,
house, eh?
Shoved Neil and Chris in the pool and was like, Barbie! And proceeded to go on a 20-minute rant that I had to cut for TikTok about how great this movie was and how much I loved it. I've now excised that demon. I don't need to talk about it anymore. Alexis, what did you think of Barbie?
Greatly enjoyed it. Glad I saw it. Hang on a second. Trying to remember what the nomination is for, like, set design, production design. Yeah.
Well,
I would argue
been
this
praised. Even Robert thinks that's got, a good set. It's a good production design.
Generally.
Yeah, no, I love how practical they made the movie with the actual the sets and everything. This movie freaking created a national shortage of pink paint.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Anish Kapoor can
not.
suck it.
Okay. All right, Robert. The woman spoke. The woman in a man's body spoke. Here it is. I'll put you on the full screen if you want. Just
I don't need
get
it.
this out of your system. And I'm gonna sit quietly and listen. I'm gonna lay back and let you do it to me. And then when we're done, we're never gonna talk about this again. Go.
First of all, I have still not seen this movie start to finish.
You're kidding me.
Nope.
Okay.
So
I freaking bought Zone of Interest for this podcast, and he gets out of watching Barbie.
Oh, quit your bitching. Miss,
Hey.
I work in hell because I work for you. Yeah, I heard your fucking comment.
I knew you'd love that.
So which of the characters in Has Been Hotel do you identify with most?
I'm like sitting there cutting this thing. It's just like, life in hell, working for Mark. I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. Anyway,
Take
Barbie.
the jab and get on with it.
I didn't mention it until right now.
So
I could tell that was been just bubbling in your brain ever since I sent you that clip.
So let me give you So here's my thoughts in brief on Barbie, such as they exist. This movie is nominated for most of the things it deserves. I don't think it deserves to be here for Best Picture. I think there's way too many production issues. I think there's way too many directorial issues for it to be a Best Picture nominee. Now, that being said, Ryan Gosling getting nominated, I don't have an issue with. The set production, I have no problem with this getting nominated for. Here's where I really struggle with this. Now, again, I have not seen the movie in full. I looked up a bunch of relevant clips because I've seen them floating around. And I have... So, here's one of my bigger gripes. Everything they do in the real world, almost everything they do in the real world, does not look like it was directed by the same person who directs Barbie Land. And I don't mean production-wise. I mean, so much of the driving in this movie, the literal driving, looks like it's directed by someone other than Greta Gerwig. I don't know if this was all second unit stuff that they just patched in wholesale. I don't know if this was edited by somebody else. I don't know if they added a brief, really stupid car chase because it was a studio note, because it feels like it. That feels like a patch job done at the end by someone else who is not the original film director. Let me do this other thing here. Margot Robbie was not snubbed. She didn't deserve it. There's a world of difference between those 2 points. Please understand them. Greta Gerwig was not snubbed. This movie's lucky to be here. And as a best picture of the year, it's lucky to be nominated. It really is. There's a lot of very good elements to it. And fair play to people to whom this movie very much speaks. To everyone, as a brief aside, because everything's the culture war these days, to all the women pissing on the men for identifying with Ken and saying, no, this is our movie, go play in traffic. That's all I'm going to say about that. The number of people who don't like gatekeeping sure do gatekeep a whole hell of a lot. Again, if you made me pick 5 movies this year to be nominated for Best Picture, this would not be one of them. You open it up to 10. Again, this is probably 8 or 9 on my list. It's not 10 because it's not Zone of Interest, which has way too many problems. but I don't know that I would say this is a. Listen to me very carefully with what I'm about to say, people, unless you lose your minds. I don't know that this is a better made movie than even stuff like Past Lives or it's better made than Maestro, I think, but that's the level I'm talking here. This is, I think, categorically, empirically a worse film than any of like the top 3 here. And people need to understand that just because you like something, and just even if something is pretty darn good in a lot of ways, that doesn't, you are not entitled to giant recognition because of it. And again, no one was snubbed here. Margot Robbie was not snubbed as an actress. She's here she's actually nominated on the Best Picture side for all the great production work she did, because she's one of the producers on this. And by the way, she deserves that. If you look at all the work she did to make the movie happen, she 1,000,000% deserves to be considered there if you're going to consider this movie under those conditions. This is not one of the best directed movies of the year. This does not have the best actress performance. It does not have the best supporting actress performance. It does not have the best costuming. It does have the best production. And God help me, I will give it best original song. I will nomination. I will let this thing be nominated for I'm Just Ken. Fair enough. This movie got the recognition it deserved from the awards. And everyone bitching about the rest of it, if I may quote Don Draper, that's what the money's for. Take your $1.6 billion and go cry into it.
Okay. Well, folks, that is our review / touching on the top 10 or the 10 movies nominated for Best Picture at this year's Oscars, which will be soon.
At some point in the near future.
March 10th.
So
are we still
no,
live stream?
I'm gonna be at my girlfriend's house, so I'm just gonna watch it there.
That actually, I hate to say it works better, because you were gonna have to be there by yourself for a while until I got everything packed up after playing at Comic-Con.
Well, it's so funny because you said on last year's show, like, you have a standing date with your husband to watch the Oscars. So I was like,
we do. It's one of our things. We did it when we first started dating, and it just kind of became a ritual after that.
I get it. No harm, no foul. All right. We're gonna really hit this fast. Because I don't want to spend all year on this, but we've sort of mentioned it hither and thither throughout the podcast. Movies that should have been there and shouldn't have been. So Variety, Robert's favorite periodical, 25 films rejected by the Oscars in 2024 from the Iron Claw, Priscilla, and more. Just as a way of sort of structuring movies that we think should have been nominated for Best Picture rather than what we got here. So with that said, and a lot of these I didn't see. So like I said, we're going to be this is not going to be a long conversation, but 1001. Anyone?
Nope.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I think, I was going to say, I think I looked through this earlier, and most of it was like, okay, wasn't interested in seeing, or I didn't even know it came out.
So the nice thing about doing shows like this is when we don't get to do a full review of something, we get to touch on it elsewhere. So we never got to do the review of the Iron Claw, even though I saw it in the theater with my kids. I talked about it a little bit on movies that don't suck and some that do.
Did you break your children's heart by telling them there's 3 other dead brothers in that family that they cut out of the movie?
Well, it's because as Alexis found out, Jonas has the internet and can learn things on his own. And so he...
Yeah. So, Robert, did you see the review he jumped in on about Scott Pilgrim versus the World?
I've seen the clip in question.
Yeah, there was even longer of that boy just like, I know what a virtual boy is.
So fucking stupid.
I never said he was stupid, but I find it hilarious when a kid under the age of 10 knows what the fuck a virtual boy was. Most of the people in Robert's and my age group don't remember what a virtual boy was.
Okay, so my brilliant and wonderful son also looked at the Von Erichs and was like, oh my God, Dad, it's so bad. It is, son, it is.
At which point you went, Yeah. I knew that 20 years ago. I knew that, son.
I would take the Iron Claw over Past Lives. My only thing with Iron Claw, and I said this on the review, it's worth repeating here. I'll let you guys touch on this. I think it's a well-made movie. I think it's a well-acted movie. I think it looks great. I as an adaptation of decades of this family's tragedy, I understand why they left some stuff out. That's not my bitch. My bitch is it lacks some of the emotional impact it should have had. This family's life sucks.
Yeah.
And what happens to these kids should break your heart, and you should have Coco cry by the end of this movie. And it didn't get me there, and there's where the movie falls flat for me, Robert.
Do you think
really
Zac
does.
Efron was snubbed
for best actor?
Yeah. Go ahead, Robert.
Hang on. For best actor.
And for the record, every time I ask if someone was snubbed, I'm not saying you have to take someone off the list. Purely fantasy, if it's like, would you have liked to have seen them get nominated?
Yeah, sure. I think Zac Efron did a great job here. I think everyone did a great job here. The kid that plays Kerry, I think he's great. Unfortunately, Kerry, what happens to Kerry is really sad. And this was that's an example of what I'm talking about, where I didn't get the emotional impact of what happened to Kerry in the movie, which I think is a disservice to Kerry.
It really is. Like, that poor guy doing as much as he did with 1 foot.
And I understand there's not a whole lot they could do with. I mean, the Critical Drinker brought this up, where it's like, if you do too much wrestling, you're going to lose the people that don't have an interest in wrestling but wanted to see a drama. And my thing is, like, if you don't show Kerry's struggle on 1 foot in the WWE, you're missing a critical element of why he shot himself in the end.
Oh yeah, like, that was a big issue.
So I'm not a wrestling fan, but even I understand that argument.
Yeah.
There's a lot that they had to cut out to try and fix. I don't think Efron was snubbed, but I wouldn't have been upset if he did get nominated.
Okay.
For me, here's my other major gripes with this movie. There's some of the moments in this movie that are supposed to be big, and they don't look big because they didn't have the budget for it.
Yeah.
Like, Kerry winning the NWA title from Ric Flair took place in a stadium.
Yeah.
That was a giant thing, and they shot it in a bingo hall. Like, you took away a lot of context that is added via the actual spectacle of professional wrestling, and that's really unfortunate. I'm also with you, Mark, that you should be more emotionally devastated by the end of this thing than you are with Kevin, because God bless him, still alive, living by himself happily and has found peace. He lives in Hawaii, I think, and he's got a couple of kids who are not very good professional wrestlers, but they make the rounds. Ross and Marshall.
Isn't his daughter in there like a chick
Lacey? We don't talk about Lacey Von Erich. Those of us who saw her in Impact / TNA.
No.
All right, I haven't seen Priscilla. I wanted to. It was one of the ones I was going to make Robert review, and it just ran out of time and space and everything else. I don't know much about it. I've heard it's good. Anything, you guys?
I just knew it as the first Elvis movie where the I don't know. Okay, I don't know specifically who it is that owns the rights to Elvis music, but I know this was the first time it was an Elvis movie, and they said you can't use Elvis music.
Well,
that was a good sign.
Well, hang on. This is, much as I appreciate family estates wanting to maintain rights and wanting to be, in some cases, protective of the legacy with which they are entrusted, the Elvis Presley family is, here's the best compliment I can pay them as far as what they are willing to allow. They're not the Lee family, because good grief, Bruce Lee's estate is so ungodly. They approve of nothing but hagiography of Bruce Lee. That's it. The Elvis Presley estate is not.
Didn't they throw a fit about Bruce Lee's appearance in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yes, they did.
That's
because
what
it
I
did
thought.
not contribute to his sainthood. I
I
have
thought that scene was I thought that scene was hilarious, and I credit the actor who I thought did an absolute perfect impression.
He did. My brother is not wrong here, or the J.R.R. Tolkien estate. Yeah.
I actually had to take down my Lord of the Rings jewelry because the Tolkien estate apparently goes after Etsy artists.
They go after everyone. Those people are that is the most litigious estate that exists. The Lee estate is not as litigious, but they are, again, if you are, for the record, if you are not contributing to the hagiography of Bruce Lee, they tend to dismiss you. And sorry, Bruce Lee was a real person and he had flaws. And the Presley family, again, does Priscilla shine maybe too negative a light on Elvis Presley for them? Sure, and that's kind of why they got pissy about it, but...
All right. It's still on my list of things I want to see if I ever get a chance. Dream Scenario. I've heard this is good. You guys see it?
I have not seen it yet, but I'm going to... When I can find it, I think I will watch it, yes.
All right. All of Us Strangers, yes, no?
Nope.
I just started hearing about that recently, and I've just started hearing it's really good.
Robert, Origin.
I hadn't even heard of it.
Let us continue down the path of ahistorical retellings of slavery.
Memory.
Hadn't heard of it.
I know Jessica Chastain got a little buzz about it, but unfortunately, it's kind of a tough year. Haven't seen it yet.
All right, so I think Sean and I reviewed this as part of a triple feature where we focused on Wes Anderson. I know Chris from Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do. This was on his best. This was on his top 10.
Was on mine.
Robert, I think you were very kind to Asteroid City. This was not my favorite Wes Anderson movie.
I think I mentioned that part of the problem that you and some other people might have with this is if you jump through Wes Anderson's films and you make pit stops, you don't see the progression. And this is kind of the logical endpoint of his stylistic of his style of filmmaking. I liked it. This is one of my personal 10 best. Do I think it deserved a Best Picture nomination? No. There's a few acting performances that maybe could have been considered, and elements of the production and set, like the production design, should have been considered more than it was.
I'm just not a huge fan of Wes Anderson's film style.
Which is
it's
fine.
Yeah, again, it was cute and it was interesting, but as you mentioned, doesn't seem to be any development. He doesn't seem to be willing to try. I enjoyed the Grand Budapest Hotel, but that was more just, again, with the acting and the story than with the actual directing. I feel like literally you see one Wes Anderson movie, you've seen them all.
I don't know anything about this. Eileen.
I saw a trailer for it. Wasn't it?
Oh, but it's going to go on your list because it's a psychosexual thriller, Mark.
You know me too well, babe. Ferrari was supposed to be part of a joint review we were going to do with the Iron Claw, and then we scrapped it to do Lisa Frankenstein. So, I think I'm going to end up with Andrew Graham later this year or Michael Mann.
Graham on Man, huh?
Yes. And I think we're going to do Ferrari, Heat, and something else. I don't remember what. He picked it. But yeah, it's on my list of things I want to see. I like Michael Mann. I'm curious about this. Especially after Ford versus Ferrari.
Hang on. That's why this movie exists. This is a vanity response to Ford v Ferrari, where the Ferrari.
Oh, this is this is the opposite side of a rap battle.
Pretty much.
Sweet.
This is okay. No. Yeah, sure. Maybe we were the jerks in that one, but look at our history. Look at our struggles, and let's put Adam Driver in a weird outfit.
Yeah, because the last time we had to listen to Adam Driver do an accent, that was so much fun.
Oh, was that the House of Gucci?
House of Gucci, yeah, the movie that God himself decided, you know what, you don't need to see this shit.
All right, Fair Play.
Not familiar with it.
Saw a trailer. I didn't even know it had come out yet, though.
The Killer, I think, is on a list is on a triple feature I'm doing later in the year.
I think you and I talked about this a little bit, didn't we?
This was one that we were gonna do, and then we scrapped it to do Godzilla versus Godzilla -1.
Okay, because I've seen this and I remember talking about it a little bit with you, so we might have briefly touched on it.
Yeah, I'm doing a David Fincher triple feature at some point this year, and this is going to be on there.
Best of luck to you with that one.
Yeah, I think that one is The Killer, Seven, and Zodiac.
Prep the Johnny Walker. You're gonna need it.
Well, hang on. Actually, those three in order constitute a very interesting construction and deconstruction of serial killer mythology in the United States. But this movie being snubbed, I don't think this was snubbed.
Okay, so fuck this movie.
Behold pretension. Thy name is Saltburn.
Because
okay, so Saltburn was this year's Triangle of Sadness.
Oh, go fuck yourself. I'm so mad about that.
No.
Robert and I are never going to let it go, Mark.
She's right. Yes.
So, hang on. So, as we all know, I'm transracial and identify as a 7-foot-tall black guy. And I insisted, shut up, Alexis. Just hold your
I didn't say anything.
You did with your gesture.
You should not be under that.
Aw, hi, Kitty. What's your cat's name?
This is Tatsumaki. She is our terrible tornado.
Aw,
anyway, so I begged to be on the Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do when they did American Fiction, and they said that's great. We're also doing Saltburn. You have to watch that too. And I went, okay, I don't know what that is, but I'll check it out. I love Neil and Chris. I really do. Oh, I was mad at Chris after that. It's so bad.
Well, let me
not
sum up.
Because you see Barry Cogan's dick for 20 minutes. That I'm fine with.
That's the least offensive thing
about
this movie in Mark's world is male genitalia.
I'm just glad you guys are telling me this because I believe this is free to stream on one of the net. I don't remember.
Don't bother.
Yeah, no, I was looking. I was like, oh, okay, that's actually on streaming now. Megan knows, like, good. Don't have to sit through that shit. Thank you.
Your boyfriend Pat had the best line about Saltburn. He was like, "This is what the love you too. This is what the proletariat think the 1% are like behind closed doors."
Yes,
that's fantastic.
This is what a poor person thinks rich people do, and it's them whining about it in public. This is a terrible movie. Yeah, this is not snubbed. This is terrible.
The person who wrote this article for Variety, if they thought this should have been a Best Picture, go shit your ridiculous. I saw this with Melissa in the theater. It's okay.
I forgot that came out last year.
Quality, but it's good.
Okay, I seriously forgot that came out last year.
Here's my only thing about Air. Okay, first of all, no, this should not be nominated for anything. It's fine, whatever. Does not deserve to be nominated. Here's the only thing I'm going to say about Air. I watched that because we reviewed it. We were going to review it, and then we scrapped it. But I'd seen that in The Killer before.
No, Pain Hustlers is what we were going to do with The Killer. Air was like in the spring, and we were never going to review it.
Right. Why did I see you recommended it, so I watched it.
Yes, I saw it on a date night with Melissa, and I enjoyed it. Is what happened.
Wasn't that originally on the schedule, and it had basically just got sacrificed?
No, neither was No Hard Feelings to my fucking depression.
The answer is yes. It was sort of there, but here's the only thing about Air that I'm going to bring up. So there's a daily internet game. It's called Framed, which is just individual frames of a movie, and then you have 6 guesses to try and figure out what it is. Because I'd seen Air, the first frame, the individual guesses get easier, right? So it starts very obscure, gets very specific to the movie. Because I'd seen the movie, when the first clue comes up, and it's just the not named Nike building in the background with I think it's Mount Hood behind it because we're in Washington, or that would be St. Helens. And in the lush green forest, I went, oh yeah, that's the one of the few that I've gotten in one is the Air movie on Framed.
I just remember that movie getting talked a lot in our network chat, and I could have sworn it was, are we reviewing this? Are we reviewing this? Are we reviewing this? I swear that's what I remember.
It's one of those ones that I didn't pay any attention to at first because I wasn't sure if it was going to be a theatrical thing or streaming or in theaters, but only in the theaters behind the door that says Beware the Leopard. And I kind of ignored it. And then I knew it was, and then it was just one of those things where it was, Melissa suddenly had an interest in it, and I made, and I made sure that we saw it and it was playing near me. And that was as much thought as I put into the air. I don't know what this is. It looks amazing in the kind of movie that Robert would hate, Cassandra, and definitely should not be a Best Picture nominee.
But
Saw
Mark,
a
it's
trailer
about...
ages ago and didn't
Okay.
even know it came out.
Hang on. We have to do the thing now, Mark. All right. Are you ready for the thing?
I'm always ready for your thing.
So we're running out of first gay things. You see, a few years ago, they actually released a movie about the first black swim team. Because we're running out of first black things. Now, for a while, hey, maybe. Look, some of those stories are interesting. I'm not pretending otherwise. Then, because everything has to be a marketing gimmick, it has to be you're the first black whatever. Now it's the first. We've done the first gay thing. It's been going for a while. We're at the first gay wrestler. So here's this. We're out of the gay. We're out of the first gay thing now. Please stop.
Moving on. The autobiography of Robert Winfree, Old Dirt Road's Taste of Salt.
How did you get
Haven't
to
even
that?
heard of it.
Yeah, I don't know what this is either.
No.
I saw Blackberry with a friend of mine. It's okay. You know, it's one of those where I don't even think it's as good as Dumb Money,
It's
but
not.
it was good, and
It's
I don't think
fine.
it deserves to be Best Picture.
No, it's fine. It wasn't. Nothing was snubbed here. It's
Yeah.
fine.
I don't know what Flora and Son are.
No idea.
Nope.
This looks amazing, but I have no idea what The Burial is.
No clue.
I'll read very briefly if you want.
Passages, anything?
I'm
I
very,
think I
very...
may have heard about it in passing.
Hang on. Here's what I can say about Passages. I'm so unbearably sick of love triangles and all of their stupidity.
All right, and then finally, Beau is Afraid. Not finally, but I've heard. So again, this came up where like Chris loved it and Neil hated it, and they got in a fight about it. So I'm not really entirely sure what to think about Beau is Afraid, other than apparently it's really long.
It's overlong. It's very divisive.
Yeah.
First of all, if you want to watch it, fine. Be warned, this is a horror movie.
Well, it's Ari Aster. Ari Aster is one of the most impactful horror directors we've had come out in recent years.
100%, even though Midsummer does not hold up at all.
I think it does.
In retrospect, I wish we had done it on Damn You Hollywood, because I think it would have made for an interesting conversation. But it's an A24, and it's an A24 movies just because you live in Utah. There's always a 50% chance whatever it is, whatever weirdo indie A24 pick isn't going to be anywhere near you. So, you know, and then I don't remember what this got released against, but I'm fairly certain I picked whatever, probably Cocaine Bear for all I know. You know,
it's very hard to sit through. Ari Aster's films are ones I actually cannot sit through in theaters. I have to wait for them to come to streaming because his movies are just so intense.
Yeah.
It's one of those things like I need to be safe in my home when I watch his stuff.
Yeah, it's one of those where the film nerd in me, especially a year later, wishes we had talked about it, but I don't know when we would have.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. Again, it's divisive. You might have absolutely hated it. And it could easily have been that one of us hated it and the other one loved it, and we got into a fight over it.
Yeah.
I don't think anything here was snubbed. Maybe. No. Again, if we had more than 5 nominees, maybe you could see Joaquin Phoenix, but we don't. So,
well, at least this article isn't arguing that Napoleon got snubbed
yet.
I don't know what Monica is, and I don't care. Of an age, same.
Looks like an Australian film.
Polite Society, I am a little surprised. There's some very nice production stuff here. And frankly, when they finally start nominating stunt categories, it would have been for that. It might have qualified for that one. So that one's
showing up. I don't know what this is. And that is the end of that.
Yep.
All right. Now, I mean, we've been talking about it. So it's not, I don't know how many surprises are going to be here, but here we are. Let's go through our predictions. We'll start from the bottom now that we're here. Best visual effects. The Creator, Godzilla -1, Guardians of the Galaxy, Mission Impossible, Napoleon. What you pick, Alexis?
Visual effects. If Godzilla -1 doesn't win, there's going to be a lot of pissy fanboys. Although, for some reason, it wouldn't surprise me if Napoleon ends up taking it, even though it doesn't deserve it.
See, I think it's a toss-up between the creator and Godzilla -1, and I would not be surprised if the creator wins. Robert?
I'm with you. This is between Godzilla -1 and the creator, and Godzilla -1 should win. Godzilla -1 should have been nominated for Best Picture. There's several of the movies on that list it's better than.
In all fairness, didn't see the creator.
You should. Robert and I spent a long time talking about it. It's worth a watch. It's not perfect, but it's worth a watch. Best film editing: Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. Robert, best film editing.
These are all worthy nominees. Let's start there. This is kind of between Oppenheimer and Poor Things for me, and we're talking how it's edited. Probably Oppenheimer.
My pick is Killers of the Flower Moon. Alexis?
Probably
you think that's the one it gets? You think that? Dang it, do you think this is the one? If something isn't going to win anything major, they'll throw a pity one at it. You think this is the pity one Killers gets?
Maybe.
I say Oppenheimer, even though I do say Anatomy of Fall had some absolute brilliant editing. Like I said, that was the thing that made me come around on that movie. But I keep going back to that scene in Oppenheimer when he's giving the speech and he sees the students in the room getting blown away or being taken apart by an imaginary bomb, and that for me would win it. That scene alone.
Best costume design: Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. I don't think Barbie should have been nominated for best costume design. That's not what was good about this movie. The set design was fantastic. There were other elements of the movie that I really enjoyed, but I'm not sure where we're getting costume design from.
It's the idea that many of the costumes are actually identical to the Barbie outfits of
she wore 3 of them, though. That was all I remember.
It was a lot more. That and Ken and the other Kens, and hell, even Alan's costume was accurate to the doll. I swear to God.
You're swaying me, but maybe then, at least now I can see why it was included. I'm not
saying it's going to win. I still say Poor Things wins best costumes.
I'm with you. Poor Things. Robert?
Probably Poor Things.
Best cinematography: El Conde, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon. Robert?
This is Oppenheimer or Killers, and I might lean Killers of the Flower Moon here personally.
I don't even know what El Conde is.
Yeah, I'm not even considering a conversation about it.
I'm leaning toward Killers.
Best makeup and hairstyling: Golda, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Society in the Snow. I would say of that list, though, I'm not entirely sure why Barbie didn't get on this one. I'm going to go with Poor Things. Alexis?
Definitely Poor Things. I keep going back to the makeup that they put on Willem Dafoe to make his face look like it was literally stitched back together.
Yeah, he looked like fucking Jigsaw from the Punisher comics.
Very much so.
Again, we're at Oppenheimer or Poor Things here. Okay. I'm kind of with you guys. It's probably Poor Things.
Best sound: speaking of pity wins, I think this one goes to Maestro, but the contenders are The Creator, Maestro, Mission Impossible, Oppenheimer, and The Zone of Interest. And yeah, I don't think Maestro picks up too many awards, but they'll throw best sound at this one because, Leonard Bernstein. Robert?
You might be right. I think the actual best sound should probably go to The Creator. There's some really interesting stuff going on there sonically.
Alexis?
I would normally agree Maestro, but I do this is the one thing I will give credit to Zone of Interest, and that is how well they balanced out the sound effects. Apparently, again, you know me, I like to go to IMDb and read the trivia after I see a movie. You guys notice in Zone of Interest, there's a constant revving, like an engine, like a car. Apparently, that was real. Hess, I don't know how you pronounce it in German. Actually, he actually had soldiers, SS, whatever, constantly revving cars to try to drown out the sounds of shots and screams for his children. So, you know, I want to say Maestro, but if that is the only award that Zone of Interest walks away with, I would not complain.
Fair.
Best production design: Barbie, Killers, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. 2-horse race between Barbie and Poor Things, and Barbie wins this.
Poor Things rely too much on CGI. I vote Barbie.
For me, this is between Barbie and Oppenheimer, actually, if we're talking in set design and production, because like they rebuilt Los Alamos and made it look cool. I do think they're going to give Barbie something, and it's probably this.
Best original score: American Fiction, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which is John Williams. Kills of the Flower Moon, Robbie Robertson. Oppenheimer, Ludwig Göransson. And Poor Things, Jerskin Fendrix. And how do you not give it to John Williams? Which hurts me because I don't think Dial of Destiny should get anything.
Weren't we saying in last year's show that he should have won for The Fabelmans because we didn't think he was going to get nominated for Dial of Destiny?
This feels like another Oscar for John Williams, not because this is the best score all year, but because it's his last.
Yeah.
And it really does feel like a pity nomination. And I don't like saying that about John Williams.
No, look, he did the level best he could with that crappy movie. And bless him for it, John Williams is the best. He is
best
the
original song: The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot, I'm Just Ken from Barbie, It Never Went Away from American Symphony, Wahazi from Kills of the Flower Moon, What Was I Made For from Barbie, and your winner is I'm Just Ken. It's like no question.
This is the other one that's probably going to get Barbie a couple of again, if it wins anything and anything that it should win for production potentially. And I think I'm Just Ken is probably going to win this.
I think it's going to be What Was I Made For. I think Billie Eilish is walking away with another Oscar for this.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I didn't realize you were disagreeing with us.
Sorry, I thought What Was I Made For was a good song.
Anything about the best live action short film?
Nope.
Moving on.
Didn't see him.
Do you know anything, Alexis, about the best animated short films?
Afraid I don't.
Moving on.
Those of you tuning in, Diego Gleason, aka Scout Art, and I did a separate show talking about the 5 films that are up for Best Animated Feature. We discussed those at length. Go ahead and go check it out. We said that animated feature film, we're pretty sure it's going to go to The Boy and the Heron. Although if Spider-Verse walks away with it, we would not be surprised. I'm personally just thankful that Elemental is as close as Disney got to that this year, because it really didn't deserve it.
For my money, that's Boy and the Heron, and I did not care for the second Spider-Verse movie, so it's not especially close.
Anything about these, either of the best documentary ones? Just yes, no, please.
Nope.
Good. Moving on. All right, you just addressed it. The best animated feature is The Boy and the Heron. I assume you're correct because I haven't seen Nimona or Robot Dreams or The Boy and the Heron.
Well, that's actually what was weird about it. Robot Dreams has not been released in the States, and it is not on any streaming service, so we had no basis to discuss it. We talked a little bit about what we knew about the production and some of the story, but we obviously couldn't review it.
Robert, anything about these best international film features? I'm assuming the Zone of Interest is going to win it, but it's got 4 other competitors.
Give me the list real fast.
Lo Capitano, Perfect Day, Society of the Snow, and The Teacher's Lounge.
And Zone of Interest.
Yeah, Zone of Interest probably takes that.
All right, back to things people care about. Best Original Screenplay, Anatomy of the Fall, Holdovers, Maestro, May, December, and Past Lives. I haven't seen May, December yet. It was originally on the triple feature, then we kicked it off.
It was easily because it didn't get nominated for Best Picture.
That is correct. I'm going to go with Anatomy of a Fall here. Alexis?
Possibly Anatomy of a Fall, although I would really like if The Holdovers won.
Robert?
Holdovers. I think it's going to come up just short in so many categories that they're going to find one they can give it, and it's perfectly deserved here.
Best Adapted Screenplay, American Fiction, based on the novel Erasure. Barbie, based on characters created by Ruth Handler. That's a fucking stretch.
They were desperate to find something else to nominate that piece of crap for.
No argument there.
Oppenheimer, based on the biography American Prometheus. Yeah, Poor Things, based on Alasdair Gray, and Zone of Interest, based on Martin Amis. It's tough because I don't know the books, so I don't know I don't know how well these were.
This is a 2-horse race. This is between American Fiction and Oppenheimer.
Okay.
I'd like to see American Fiction win this one.
I'd kind of like it, but I think this is where Oppenheimer starts picking up steam and collecting more awards. So I'm gonna go with Oppenheimer.
All right, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Sterling K. Brown and His Abs for American Fiction, Robert De Niro for Killers, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo as Poor Things. I would bet my kid's life it's Ryan Gosling for Barbie.
This is between Robert Downey Jr. and Ryan Gosling. I'm gonna go for Robert Downey Jr. because his acting job is superior between the two relevant players.
My money is on Downey Jr. He was amazing in this and definitely proved he's more than just Marvel bait.
I have been really nice to you guys this entire show. I haven't really been mean to either one of you, nor have I called you guys lunatics. I'm gonna do it now. So get my one in. You're both lunatics. This is going to Gosling.
If Robert Downey Jr. hadn't been as exceptional as he was, I'd agree with you.
Do you want to you want to make an official bet on that, Mark?
And one shiny nickel.
So we went from your children's lives to the loose change in your pocket. You're gambling. You're betting against yourself here.
Yeah, Jesse put up more than that.
We'll talk. Best Supporting Actress, Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, America Ferrera for Barbie, Jodie Foster for Naiad, Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. I'm going to go with Divine Joy Randolph, only because she already won the Golden Globe for this.
Thirded, easily her.
She's incredible in this.
Okay. Best Actor, Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. Hands down, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer from those guys.
Again, we got a 2-horse race here. It's Cillian Murphy and it's Paul Giamatti, and it breaks my heart for Paul Giamatti because he's great. This is Cillian Murphy's.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Best Actress, Annette Bening for Naiad, Lily Gladstone for Killers, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, and Emma Stone for Poor Things. Emma Stone for Poor Things are a fucking riot.
We said it before, 2-horse race. It's either her or it's Gladstone, and I am not. I mean,
if Gladstone gets it, I won't burn the place down. But if it's anyone but her, I will.
My hunch is Emma Stone, but if this goes to Lily Gladstone, I'm not complaining. It's close enough that you could make the case for either of those two women, and you would not be wrong.
Like I said, I'm going to be at my girlfriend's house, and if Emma Stone or Lily Gladstone don't win Best Actress, I'm punching one of her kids. Just straight out.
If you forced a gun to my head and made me predict, I would probably say, yeah, Emma Stone gets it. But I really want Lily Gladstone to win. So I'm being optimistic.
You're and I'm not going to beat you up for that necessarily, but that's kind of how I feel about Emma Stone. I honestly, listen to the review. I gave Lily Gladstone an enormous hand job. And then I saw Poor Things. I can't knock the hustle. Best Director, Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall, Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, Nolan for Oppenheimer, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, and Jonathan Glazer for Zone of Interest. I think they give it to Big Money Nolan.
He should have had this a couple of times over by now. They finally should give it to him.
I would say yes, although it's either going to be him or Scorsese. I don't see the other three walking away with it.
That's true.
And if we hadn't said it enough times in this podcast, You're winning for Best Picture. It's either going to be Oppenheimer or Poor Things. The only other one I can think that's going to get it, and it's only because it's a populist choice, is going to end up being Barbie, and that's going to hurt me.
It's Oppenheimer, and if you take the movies as a whole, I don't think it's all that close. I respect Poor Things a lot, and in other years, it might have been a stronger contender. For me, that's kind of third behind Holdovers, but it and Holdovers are neck and neck. But this is Oppenheimer's, and if they screw this up, the Oscars have been desperate to get more traction and more attention from the public, as people have cared less and less each year. This is kind of demonstrable. If they get this wrong, we all know it's Oppenheimer. If you screw this one up, it's not going to go well.
If it ends up being Barbie, man, I don't want to live in the world where Barbie is the best picture. And it's not because look, I gushed about this movie. That's not what this is about. I don't want to live in the world where the next day people are fighting about it. I don't want to live in the world that's, on Robert Winfree's team going, Oppenheimer got screwed, hurt women. Okay. I don't want to live in the world where Barbie wins and I had to deal with pretentious dickbag women going, finally, just kill me dead. Both sides, kill me dead. Woo! Open this bit up. Your thoughts, Alexis, to take us home, baby doll?
I've already said I predict Oppenheimer to win. Yeah, I think Poor Things might have a chance.
But what if Barbie wins?
If they announce Barbie, then the guy who goes up to accept the award is going to look in the envelope and going to realize they announced the wrong one.
I was going to say, it's going to be La La Land all over again. It's going to be like, no. Give me the envelope. I need to double check this.
The fact that hang on. First of all, that was hilarious, by the way, for Moonlight to win, and then no one. But the fact that the next year, when Guillermo del Toro won, he looked in the envelope and double checked and looked at the camera and gave the thumbs up, was the best payoff to that joke ever.
All right, folks, that is our 2024 Best Picture Contenders survey. I thought this went really, really well. Definitely something I wanted to make a yearly tradition that we do. Very much enjoyed the conversation. Alexis, your final thoughts overall?
I think I made my thoughts pretty clear with this. I mean, what do you want me to do? Say again, I hated the zone of interest.
Well said. Robert, take me home, baby doll.
So we talked about 2023 being kind of a weak year, and much as we can wring discussion out of this stuff, I think that kind of bears out. The standouts really stood out, not only because of their own colossal achievements, but also by comparison to their peers. So
I do actually think this is the first year that it's been a case when we look through this. Whenever we talk about who got snubbed at the Oscars, usually it's a movie that we've seen, maybe that we reviewed. This is the first time we look through the snubs, and majority of us were going like, didn't see it. I think this was the first time we sat there. It's like, what? So and so didn't get nominated. Like we did with The Menu the year before.
Oh, yeah. Listen to our last year review and listen to us bitch and complain and whine about The Northman.
That too,
Should have been. There's a bunch of production stuff. It should have been in technical awards. It should have been nominated for, and it wasn't.
Right.
Yeah, like I think this is the first year that we're sitting there going like, oh, so that's it, huh? Whatever.
Yeah. I was comparing this list of movies to last year's, and I don't know. This one felt a little bit more up its own ass than last year.
Look, man, there's several movies on this list that I think are the wrong side of pretentious. Maestro in particular.
Yeah. But all right.
Say nothing of a bunch that everyone like, oh no, you snubbed Snulper. Guys, that thing is so far up its own ass.
All right. Speaking of up its own ass, Black History Month comes to a close this week. And what?
How are you and Jason celebrating, Mark?
So we are ending our array of Black History Month triple features with a look at black satire with don't be a menace to South Central Los Angeles while drinking your juice in the hood. It's the most hilarious title ever.
It's up there.
I'm gonna get you sucker, and because Jason likes it, how high? That's this Thursday, and that's the end of Black History Month. And then Damn You Hollywood returns to its normal Monday time slot with Dune Part 2, and we will be joined by David Wright. And then Sean Comer, he's back in the rotation. We are going to be, because we had so much fun looking at the Red Curtain trilogy, we thought, hey, you know what we've never talked about, and we absolutely should? Baz Luhrmann's The Great Gatsby. So we're going to be putting that on trial.
Certainly a choice.
I'm excited. I very much enjoy The Great Gatsby.
That's actually one of my favorite movies. And
then, speaking of her favorite things, Alexis Hejna is going to get pimp slapped by my son on Thursday. As she
Thursday.
A week from this Thursday, yes. After Sean and I wax musical about the Great Gatsby, Alexis Hejna, Andrew Orozco, and my darling, charming, intelligent, wonderful son, who is the star of this podcast and should be allowed all the time he needs to speak.
Several of those adjectives were accurate, but not all of them.
Nepotism, rah, rah, rah.
That's the best kind of tism.
Second.
We'll be reviewing Avatar: The Last Airbender, live action series from Netflix. All right, Alexis,
that was supposed to be reviewed last night. We had a scheduling issue with one of our other guests, Mr. Andrew Orozco. So we decided to move it because I really want him on the show. Looking forward to talking about it.
You don't want to just spend an hour with a 10-year-old boy?
Talking about an adaptation of what is arguably one of the greatest animated series of all time.
Hey, my son's seen that series like 2 or 3 times in a row.
Well, I was going to say, please tell me he likes it, and please tell me that we can still call it the Suck It Shyamalan show.
Well, he's not seen the Shyamalan atrocity, but yes.
Well, yeah, because you're not that bad of a parent.
All right. Yes, but now for the plugs that actually pay your bills.
Oh, good. You know my line. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. Next weekend, we're back to the con season, playing at Comic-Con here in Kansas City. So excited. Cannot wait to get back to that. I've been stuck in this house for long enough. I need to get the hell out of here. As always, if you can't make it to Kansas City, we have our shops open on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, still not calling it X. Fuck you, Elon Musk, and TikTok. So again, that's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
Robert, show us where you pissed from in less than 7 minutes.
I'm tempted to go longer now just because I can, but I won't do that to you.
Please don't. I just ordered food.
And I have to go to bed.
Well, aren't you guys just about town? And here I am just being me.
Oh, my God.
Sad, lonely, and pathetic. So, I cover mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. Elimination Chamber just happened and was apparently a show. I don't know. I haven't watched it. But will be WWE is moving down towards WrestleMania, and that means Friday Night SmackDown will be continuing on that path now that we know a bunch more about what's going to happen at that show. I do not want your dog, Alex. I really don't. Nor do the cats want your dog. My brother has a husky, and
oh my God, I don't care about your stupid pets.
I listened to you wax poetic about your son. You can shut up.
He's a human, you psycho.
I value dogs more than people.
Seconded.
Ugh. That's why you both get used by me.
Tell me I'm wrong. So, again, we'll be moving on that. We know a bunch of the stuff that's going to happen now. So how that's going to play out, we'll be covering that. I'm covering, of course, UFC events. This last Saturday was UFC on ESPN Plus 95. They were in Mexico City. It was a card. Not a bad card, actually. So my full report is in the MMA zone of 411mania.com. If you want to hear me talk about it in depth and preview this upcoming card, listen to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, because this coming show on Saturday is not good. When your main event is Jairzinho Rosenstreich and Shamil Gaziev, and it's all downhill from there, that's going to be a long 6 hours. I'm going to come out a changed man.
I'm going to watch the Jake Paul fight, the one that he's not headlining.
Okay. You can actually watch both. This one starts early enough. They're staying out of the way of the Jake Paul boxing fight. That's where we are. Yeah, again, that other podcast, and then back next week for Dune Part 2, which, you know what? Finally, something we can look forward to.
All right. Thank you, folks, for listening to our extended review tonight. For Alexis Hejna, who behaved herself, she was a good girl. For Robert Winfree, who behaved himself, he was a good boy. And for Mark Radulich, who didn't cough the entire way through. Be well, be safe, and behave.